Hmm. Hello, I'm really struggling. I don't know how to pull up the chat on this feature. Who knows? You're in for a ride. I watched some of it. You got to sort your... It's like listening to Tony Soprano breathe. I don't think that's actually my audio setting. That's probably because my... Hold on, let me just turn that off. It's probably because I've got my microphone turned on. Sorry, my fan turned on, but I kind of need it. It's quite warm in here. It's weird being live on a different platform to Twitch for the first time ever. Goodness me. Hello, fellow Kunzler comrades. Hello. I guess I'm just going to have to put this in full screen. Oh, no. Can I do that? Yeah, I can. Right. You're going to be upset at how stupid... I've seen some of what Ethan has said on here and what Ethan has been up to. But it remains to be seen quite how stupid. How's the picture, by the way? It looks kind of terrible on my end of the stream, which is quite weird because technically, yeah, I know. I mean, I live in England, so what do you expect with the hot weather? I'm not used to this. This live will be uploaded later, but the only thing is my picture terrible? Can you let me? How far into the video are we? This is just literally the beginning. I got it to the point where it begins. Is the picture good? I just need to also mess around with the camera. I've only ever been live on Twitch, so I find this a little weird doing it on here. Fuck it, you know what? It just looks, yeah. I don't think Ethan will back out of the, you look good, bro. Very submissive or breedable. Goodness me, it's actually quite easy. It's a lot easier to build up like a viewer base on here. When I was live on Twitch, I'd only get about, I don't know, it's grainy. It's pretty grainy in the pip. Yeah, I know, that's really strange because it shouldn't be grainy and I'm not sure why it is. Is this some kind of YouTube feature? Hold on, let me just check. Video capture device, properties. Custom. No, device default. Has that done anything? I'm just fiddling around with it. I have... No, I know the picture's fine, but in the corner I just look... Oh, there we go. That seems to have improved it a tiny bit, but it's just... it looks good to us, just your preview because you're streaming. Mine's close fuck. What, the picture of me, as in the picture of me? God, I am sweating. It is kind of unbelievable how warm it is. And also going live and wearing a headset. Yeah, the desktop capture looks fine, but I'm just looking at myself here. And I don't know whether to go live on Twitch, because the picture's so fucking bad on here. Oh, wait, will it record on OBS? I guess if I start a recording on OBS, that'll sort of fix the problem as well. So I'll start a recording on OBS as well. And I guess it's kind of just time to get into it, really. There's not really any reason to delay, is there? We can't see your sweat. I mean, yeah, you can't see me sweat, but I am sweating like crazy. The desktop capture is good quality. I mean, it looks okay, but it just definitely looked better on Twitch, I've got to admit. The camera is steaming up from the heat. Yeah, it's from the heat of me getting so heated up about my Ethan Klein enjoyment. It could just be the lighting. I mean, it could be. I don't know, bro. I've got like a pretty powerful ring lighting setup, you know. Ring lighting in the corner. Hasan knows how to use OBS. Yeah, unfortunately, Hasan doesn't often respond to me. Let me just check the I don't know how to check. Shall I just start watching it? I think your eyes are fuzzy. You think my eyes are fuzzy? It just looks... Maybe it's the quality of the YouTube stream I'm looking... No, the YouTube quality of the stream is fine. Fuck it, you know what? Let's just start. Also, I'd like to address the fact... Yeah, I am subscribed to H3, but I've had YouTube for a very long time, so fuck it, let's start.
I will set up the Zoom call here.
Oh shit, it's too
We
tiny.
have Crowder ready. Stand by.
The biggest thing is that iDubbbz hasn't denied it. You know what I mean? I feel like it'd be an easy thing to just deny.
I feel like it's real for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show, Mr. Sam Seder.
Oh my God, it's Sam Seder. What a nightmare.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
It's okay though, because the thing is I'm sorry that it's so low quality. It's not like this on Twitch. I mean, how upset are people by the camera? Because I could just go over to Twitch if people needed. Like, I have a Twitch, but if people want to watch it here, then that would be fine. I don't know why my camera's pixelated. The picture isn't bad. I don't know if this is a YouTube quality thing, because even on OBS right now, the picture's like perfectly fine. So I don't know what would be causing it. Shall I restart the stream and see if I can fix it? Because I don't know what on earth could be causing me to look like this. Okay. Alright, you're staying. There's a lot of people watching as well. This is like a TikTok live. It's fine, it's high quality. I mean, it's definitely not. Okay, right, let's just go.
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you again.
I've been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over
we're
the years.
all. It's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the H3 channel, yes.
I want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that explains why I didn't hear back.
He may no, yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly, I don't know what to do, because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people, but I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned.
This is just kind of boring, like listening to Ethan tell Sam Seder why he's not on Twitter. I mean, I know that this isn't all it is. So I watched basically the end of it last night, but yeah. I mean, also on the topic of me being live, I just haven't been since I've done more YouTube, but I've been I used to go live on TikTok all the time, and then there was a brief period where I was live on Twitch for a while, but I kind of changed and stopped doing that as much. So yeah.
And perpetuates basically like Nazi shit. So
yeah, this was yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that. I just assumed you didn't want to respond, but
okay, well,
me.
That's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know, like, the whole lore of it, the background of it.
I mean, this is all I know is that Hasan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October. And I
mean, on the topic of the chat was insane. You guys are completely correct. The chat was absolutely wild yesterday. I looked at it and I had to turn it off because it was kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, I am going to put it on 1.5 times speed because I just don't want to watch the beginning.
I thought we were just going to do this off air, but my understanding is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only for myself as a in any form.
Well,
whatsoever.
Sam, allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
Please.
No, but actually, I mean, that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hasan. But basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel. And he...
By the way, I saw a really good tweet about this, which was just someone saying, like, they don't care. I do understand, like, look, anti-Semitism, most definitely a real thing. But what I will definitely say here is What I will definitely say about this is I don't think that this really matters. Like, young Jewish people are taught a specific vision of Israel. I was thinking about this some guy came onto my live yesterday and he thought he was giving all these really educated takes as like some kind of British nationalist talking about Palestine, right? And like, all I have to say is, like, Britain promised land that wasn't ours to people who didn't live there and said that we didn't care what was going to happen there. And then now people are like, why do you talk about foreign conflicts all the time? And it's just like, this is the biggest issue of the current era, really, in terms of, like, how atrocious it's been, how massive the support is from the West. And by the way, Israel frames itself as, like, you know, the defender of Western values, and so it's always going to be so important. Also, just like on the topic of Ethan's ticks, like, it's not something I'm gonna be talking about. Like, you know what? It's something that he cannot control, and probably the amount of stress that this man has been under from his horrendous takes on the internet are no doubt increasing that, because, like, look, I think from the bits I've seen of this debate, like, the truth is that Ethan just wasn't able to defend his views because they're abhorrent. And I once had a debate, which none of you probably saw, with someone who I went to university with, and she used to film us on campus, and she'd, like, take videos. There's an article about how we, like, attacked her anti-Semitically. And when we had a discussion about Palestine, she didn't know anything about Palestine or even Israel, which is, you know, kind of surprising when you run the university's Israel advocacy group. But the second point was just that, the more we talked, even though she purported to be a liberal Zionist, you can't defend Israel without actually, like, avowing what you believe, you know. I don't know Ivor Dembina. I've not heard of them. No.
He was disagreeing with me. And I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that, and I have, I don't know if you agree with that or not, I can pull it up, but 72% of diaspora Jews have some type of at least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong. And I said, who are you?
I'm sorry to keep pausing. I'm going to stop pausing. But to the person who just suggested something for me to do, I know I'm relatively young, but my understanding of computers is like a very, very, very aged thing. And I'll answer one more question right now. Oh, is this going to be my full-time gig? I mean, currently it is my full-time gig. I'm able to sustain it with donations and support, and because I do TikTok and YouTube, I do earn enough of a salary to sort of say, like, hey, you know, I'm not, you know, living in basically destitution. But, and obviously I have, as you can tell from my voice, and I've never hidden this, I'm a very privileged person. But basically, yeah, I mean, when it comes to doing this is my full-time job. I would say the only thing that would push me away from it is going back to academia, and the consideration is a PhD. Now, for the longest time, I'd spoken about maybe doing a PhD in America, or not the longest time, but this was kind of my thought about what I was gonna do. But then I kind of made the decision of, no, it's not a good idea to go do a PhD in America right now, because I'm a moron. I'm a moron. I mean, that's probably a big factor in it, you know, just trying to actually waste 6 years of my life doing something that all of my friends who I know did it tell me that it's not good. And yeah, how old am I? I'm 24. I had to lie about my age. I'm actually 45, but, you know, I just look young for my age.
You to talk about this. I did not say that I only listen to Jewish people, which is a little bit of presumptuous and a little insane.
No, I don't think that's not what I took him to say. But yeah, I mean, Hasan is that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or you know, somewhat.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, different than positive per se.
So
but regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean, certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was, I would say, 1/3 Holocaust, and you know, I'm older, and so this was, you know, in the 70s, 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, like Hebrew and Jewish culture. And I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I think what the poll attempts to is basically, if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left, I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe this. So it's like if you think...
Right, so there's something actually that I want to talk about here that would be difficult for me to find, and I can't remember where I got it from. But some of you are much newer followers, so probably what you don't know is that I've been making videos on TikTok for quite a while, and one of the old videos I made that I'm a bit ashamed of is one that's like semi-positive towards Ethan. It's very old. It's let me see if I can find it. It's very interesting. Birthright. Chris Kunzler Houthis is the search I'm getting currently. Fuck. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. But basically, one of the most interesting things is, if you don't know what Birthright is when you go over to Israel and you like get a trip paid for. And interestingly enough, they prefer that people who go have no rabbinic education. And what they aim for, interestingly, like Ethan, is they aim for Jewish people who don't know much about the religion. They aim for people who are, like, disconnected from it. And one of the things about Birthright is, in spite of all the crap they feed you, they don't actually really change opinions by going on the Birthright trip. But the one opinion that categorically changes over time is people develop a feeling of fear towards the of the experience of Jewish people who live in Israel. They feel more worried about the security of Jewish people who actually used to live in, who currently live there, and they worry that, IOF soldiers are going to get killed or something. I mean, basically, this is why a lot of Jewish people have these feelings. They're told, Israel's constantly under attack, these people are rabid anti-Semites. I mean, the next video I'm working on is about Douglas Murray, who, is a Nazi apologist who regularly says that Hamas are worse than the Nazis. And, that's a disgusting thing to say, which undeniably minimizes the Holocaust. Source, I made it up. I'm not gonna sit here, Birthright. I'll see if I can find it by Googling. Yeah, here we go. Right. Let's talk about H3H3. I like my own video. To Israel. First of all, if you don't know what H3H3 is, it is the YouTube channel of Ethan Klein and Ethan Klein, who are married, and they have been some of the biggest YouTubers. This video might get me cancelled because of how bad it is. YouTubers over the last decade or so. Now, the reason I want to talk about them is because Hila is an Israeli. Now, Hila served in the IDF, and this is actually where she met Ethan when he was on his Birthright trip to Israel. This video isn't to stir up hatred or critique H3H3's relationship. You can see how long ago this kind of shit is. Because ultimately, Ethan has actually shared some pretty pro-Palestinian content. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I could never find this video, but when I was talking about it, the thing I will say is that I do regret making this video in a sense, but also, at this time, I'm gonna be honest, he did a podcast with Hasan, who I knew was very, very pro-Palestine, and then also, the other key point was that, the other key point was that, God, yeah. This is, yeah. The other key point is, as well, is I was just I don't know. I do regret this in many ways, and I think that this is a bit of a foolish post to have made, because I knew exactly what Israel was like at this time, I knew that it was racist. I made a video at this point saying Israel was perpetrating genocide. The truth is I never watched the videos of H3 talking about being in the IOF. I just pulled it up and was like, oh, this is interesting, listening to how they met. I didn't hear Ethan call it a terrorist city, and I remember when someone put something in and said, hey, maybe you should watch the videos, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should have done that, but I'll just play this because it is interesting. This is his statement from about 2 years ago, and although it isn't perfect, it is much better than what the majority of YouTubers are doing. Now, about 6 years ago, they weren't really pushing this kind of content. Hila was talking about how there were considerable numbers of terrorists and such, and obviously she served in the IDF, but ultimately it seems that their views are changed and they are... and that they are pushing more positive content. Birthright is a charity that since 1999 has been offering young Jewish people between the ages of 18 and 26 a free 10-day trip to Israel to learn about their Jewish heritage.
It feels like the equivalent of like going to the Jim Crow South through segregation and like not talking about segregation.
I highly recommend that you check out this full video of Elon Glickman. Watching like an old video of me is really, really, really difficult. But yeah, I mean, also, one of the things I would say is like at this time, I'd watched him exclusively, really, because obviously when I was a lot younger, I used to watch Ethan through... I used to watch him through Leftovers. Like, I didn't watch the H3 podcast, and what I liked about him was, like, when he used to talk about Andrew Tate all the time, I'll be honest. And I kind of was like, okay, yeah, this guy doesn't hold problematic views, you know, he's progressed a lot. But also, I do remember, like, part of this was, like, the classic thing of kind of pushing... of kind of like using him as a way to like push out to his audience. But now at this point, there's no point trying to appeal to his audience with like the content I make around him. Like what actually is the point? Talking about his Birthright trip, because he shows how that they are given maps that erase the West Bank as a Palestinian area, and there is no discussion of the oppression of the Palestinian people, and it will give you a very good look into how these trips are effectively a propaganda piece. It is worth reading the Cohen Institute from Brandeis University's report on how the Birthright trips influence the opinions of people from 2022. What this reports is that the number of respondents who said that they felt connected with Israel initially went up from 30% to 49%. The Birthright trips didn't make it more or less likely that the people participating would view the Israeli state as violating the human rights of the Palestinians, or whether it upholds equal rights of Palestinians. I suppose that's actually a really interesting thing to say, because I think especially with going there at all and not seeing that Israel violates Palestinian human rights is, you know, very ridiculous, I think is the ultimate thing. And I guess there's a certain naivety here, and also just like, I don't know, it's weird looking back on a video I made like this. And also, you can also see the different style, because something that you may not know is I actually did an internship with Middle East Eye at one point a long time ago now, and it's kind of like one of the things that sort of taught me how to make content slightly better. So this is more like a balanced report, because why don't you link the source? Because it's the Cohen Institute from Brandeis University, and the reason I would never link a source on TikTok is because I used to think it would throttle the views, and now I just don't care. If you want the source, you can have it here. Fucking hell, thank you, Overzealots. I loved your video, by the way. I actually need to finish it. It was brilliant, honestly. I mean, I wish I could edit like you. That's an incredibly kind donation. Thank you. But it did change as to whether people felt that Israel was constantly under threat. And perhaps this has something to do with relationships with IDF soldiers, like H3H3. This is actually really interesting. My friend wrote a dissertation about this, and Ethan actually notes this in the video. He calls it a Jewish dating simulator. He called it a Jewish dating simulator. This is genuinely a thing they do. They give hot IOF soldiers, I do apologize. They give them a week off, and they basically let them bang people from America to influence their opinions of Israel. It's a very interesting topic. Because the IDF soldiers are actively engaged in the oppression of the Palestinian people, they are often exposed to violence from Palestinians. So this means that they have an opinion that Israel is constantly under threat. And even what H3H3 notes in his video is that it is effectively like a dating simulator for Jewish people, because they take attractive IDF soldiers, give them 10 days off, and then take them to meet the people who are on the Birthright trip. And this leads to people forming relationships. And this is how connections are built with the state of Israel. And in a way, this is what happened to H3H3. Some people like Ethan and Gila genuinely meet their soulmates and go on to have wonderful relationships that I probably shouldn't have spoken of the Raider of Ramallah in such terms. And decades. But for most people, it's just a fleeting romance where they, fall in love with someone, and by virtue of that, they have a wonderful time and begin to fall in love with the country. And this is why I said that this isn't a critique of Ethan and Gila's relationship. Right, that is enough. I can't watch myself. But the basic point is like how Birthright influences people in this kind of way. Who's Rich? Rich Lux. Wow. I don't know who Rich Lux is, I'm afraid. Good morning. Good morning to you as well. Ebb and Flow did a great vid recently about her. I mean, yeah, I think ultimately the thing with raiding Ramallah is Ramallah was a place controlled by the Palestinian Authority. If you look when Hila served in the IOF, also thank you for the donation, Wes, that's incredibly kind. Good books about the history of Zionism. I've actually got a ton behind me. You know what? I am a big fan of I'm a fan of a couple of Israeli historians. I like Tom Segev. This book is really interesting and I can talk about it here. I can literally never mention the title on if I'm streaming on TikTok. It's called The 7th Million Israelis and the Holocaust, and it's about how Holocaust memory became a thing. Happy International Workers' Day. It's about how Holocaust memory became a thing within Israel. It's really, really interesting. And I've got a few others here as well. I actually would, you know what, if you want something free, and you want something that is really like a game changer, and is written by a Palestinian in the 1960s, and some of the things that you see on it is Fayez Sayer's, which I've just linked here, Fayez Sayer's Zionist colonialism. He, talks about colonialism and Israel and what it is. Constantly sweeps for Ethan. I don't know what that means. Is that a good thing? Which you should stick around and you might learn a bit. I mean, maybe you'll learn something. I guess you're not very happy.
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not. But it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one, is it, Dan? There's the one that shows 73% of diaspora Jews. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel.
By the way, categorically, Ethan is a Zionist, and I mean, I think some of the things he said go well beyond being just Zionists. I think that he is pretty extreme. I think that the comment on hospitals is particularly vulgar. I think that saying something like that when you look at what's going on in Palestine is unbelievable. I genuinely do.
Being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, etc., right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that. So basically, I would like to just take the...
And on this topic, of course, Ethan Klein did not directly kill a baby, but that is what the IOF does. The IOF does kill massive amounts of babies. And on this topic, Ethan refers to a 19-year-old from Yemen as a terrorist. And you know what? If that guy's a terrorist, as I think Bad Empanada has said this a lot, by every metric, Ethan is a much bigger... Ela is a much bigger... terrorist. All right, sorry, I'm just sorry, I probably should have set up an admin, but I don't know anyone here, because obviously when I'm live on Twitch, I've set up with people. Yeah, I mean, happily raiding someone's homes. It's a really aggressive thing to go into someone's homes. And I mean, I have friends who grew up there, and talking to them about just thinking about your own personal life. There is so much of Palestine which we look at and we draw as an example of oh my God, look at how bad things are. And I think the truth is that none of us will ever be able to understand fully one of those videos of, just people being blown to pieces. We don't understand them. That is not our trauma. They are horrifying, and we can see them and view them, but that, looking at one, we don't understand them, even the most horrifying of them. But what you can ultimately understand 100% is the mundane nature of Israeli oppression, of things like not being able to move freely, wanting to go about your daily life and not being allowed to pass through a checkpoint. It is genuinely insane to think about that. And also, thank you to anyone donating. Thank you, Sunflower Dragon, and thank you to the person who previously donated. But yeah, I mean, I think that the ultimate thing is Palestine and the experience of Palestinians is just so obscenely disgusting. Palestinians live a life that is incomparable to that of Israelis. There's violence on, there's violence inflicted on Israelis. Of course, there's violence inflicted on Israelis. But I think the truth is that it just doesn't compare to being able to live a nice life in Tel Aviv where you can move freely, whereas Palestinians are not allowed to.
The opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently I will only listen to other Jewish people. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you. As the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Seder, everybody. 100% Ashkenazi? You ever taken one of those?
I haven't, but I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. My friend, I'm 99.3%. So that's my. That's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say, I got about an hour.
Okay, great. I'll just get into it then. Here it is. Not that it matters, but okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with a little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy this image together. Tim.
I am actually just going to pause and skip this part because I don't need to hear jokes about Tim Pool. Like, Tim Pool's a risible individual. And I think that this was actually part of the sort of trick of leftovers, I'll be honest with you guys. I think that a big part of the trick of why Ethan was able to appeal as a sort of left-winger was that Ethan was dunking on people like fucking Andrew Tate, who is just an example of someone who is so racist and disgusting and just awful that and also that actually touches on the smallest part of him. Like, he's also a sex trafficker, or an alleged sex trafficker. I'm a commentator, I am not a journalist, so yeah, I don't want to see the Tim Pool thing.
Look for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah, so well, let me ask you this. What have you kind of like heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an opinion.
I got to be honest with you. I have not heard much. I have, like, the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky, I'm also on Blue Sky, is just this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it. But I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And the personal aspects of this, and I don't believe that people. I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted or tried to be fired or whatever.
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. What was I saying? Oh, I really, oh god, there's so many messages saying muted. I really like this point of how Sam Seder, Jesus Christ, there are so many people saying muted. God, I need Jesus Christ, I need moderators. God, and thank you for anyone donating. Sorry, I'm just going through like all of the there's just so much going on right now. I'm not used to this many people watching me stream. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I mean, Ethan's reaction towards Frogan and like Hasan and calling them anti-Semites was far stronger than his reaction to Sam Hyde. He said regarding Sam Hyde, he was like, oh, maybe he's not too fond of Jewish people, maybe he's, potentially a Nazi. The guy donated to write, what's his name? The head of, is it Der Stormer or the Daily Stormer? And it's like, it's kind of insane. I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. There are 1,700 people watching me. Is my audio bad? Is my audio really bad? I dropped every anti-white slur. Yeah, I'm in a lot of legal trouble vis-a-vis white slurs. I don't have a Discord, and I don't know if I'll make one, because I think one of the things with the Discord, or something I seem to note from like content creators who I followed from the longest time, is that when it comes to when it comes to Discords, they can fight a lot. Love the work. Bro, Ethan opening a chat about a genocide with, so what do you think about me is crazy. I mean, it is crazy, but I guess this is kind of the thing of a lot of the genocide stuff, and it's like, I don't know if any of you saw the debate with Lonerbox. The debate with Lonerbox did not really go very well, and part of that was Lonerbox's very quick thinking ability of, hey, let's stay on points that are not of key substance, as opposed to actually getting on to points of substance where he would have to explain his views, like claiming Israel is not a colony, something that clearly in my, from my YouTube video, the guy couldn't be bothered to read a single essay about why Israel might be a colony. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. I know. I that's the thing with modding people. I don't know how to mod people who, because I don't know anyone on here. Whereas on TikTok, people had been coming to my streams for ages, and there was only about 50 people who had watched me on Twitch. So it's kind of a bit of like a, gosh. Because, by the way, the hardest thing of being a TikToker is trying to get it to transition over. And thank you, Surin. Thank you, that's very nice. I mean, there'll be, if you want to watch, there'll be a stream up. But yeah, I mean, a colony of what? Lil Noir, you've only put in like a couple of hateful comments, but yeah. Thank you very much, Dylan. As someone who Sam Seder was the first real introduction to leftist politics over 10 years ago, it's so insane Ethan just assumes Sam Seder would agree with him. Yeah, and I mean, there are a couple of points which I'm quite excited to get onto in a bit about like what Sam Seder actually was saying, because I think that there are a few points where Sam Seder kind of didn't say things that I think really needed to be said. But yeah, I think that's... Sorry, there was a comment that made me laugh that I won't read. Look, I don't like Lonerbox, but I do regret doing that. I do that thing, But yeah, I mean, also, like, on this topic of Sam Seder, like, yeah, he's a guy who actually understands politics and understands that, anti-Semitism is a very real thing, but that should not be used in service of deplatforming, destroying free speech, and not wanting to talk about Israel. Like, I think that's frankly the truth. Like, I think that is the way that Ethan has increasingly used it. I mean, there was that clip a few days ago where he said that's anti-Semitic when someone called Hila something in Ethan's chat. In Hasan's chat. And it's just kind of, yeah, I like, Ethan's very clearly gone down a path where he doesn't want to talk about Palestine, where he doesn't want to talk about anything because he'd rather just move away from it. Thank you, LMP. Thank you so much as well. Hot jelly in the morning. I can stream, but the thing is I'm kind of... Also, hello, do not worry. Big fan of your comments recently. I've been enjoying your Twitter takes and such. Thank you, man. Great to hear from you.
Or have CPS sicked on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing and what is happening in Gaza. And
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel-Gaza Palestinian dispute situation for a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was with my wife early on. Here's my position right after October 7th, and you can tell me if you have any if you have any comments on any of my positions here. But this was this was from our episode a few days after October 7th. Yeah. Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen, this isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. and they're hellbent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza.
Right, so just on this topic, I spoke about it in my recent Louis Theroux thing. Thank you, do not... well, I assume Anthony's going to have to go if he's going to watch this. Sorry. Basically, on this topic of, like, just blaming Netanyahu, I think Israel... Like, I reposted this video. I said Israel was committing genocide prior to October the 7th, and I genuinely stand by that. I think that what matters is Israel has a plan to wipe away the concept of Palestine. I was talking about this last night. Look how much... thanks, Dylan. I was thinking about how much, like, their propaganda and the stuff that I have had in my comments and even the videos that they talk about, think about how prevalent, even amongst like liberal Labour Zionists, I mean fucking Golda Meir said of Palestinians, well, they don't exist. People who are saying Palestinians do not exist are explicitly calling for wiping away Palestinians. They're explicitly saying as a cultural and ethnic identity that they do not exist in spite of the fact that they inhabited that land before. And people would be like, well, they were just Arabs, they were this, they were that. Yeah, most Palestinians may have wanted to participate in like a... Actually, I think... Now, when I spoke to Abdul Razak Takriti, or he talked about this a lot on... if actually people were asking for recommendations... Oh, what's it called? Thawra. The Thawra podcast by The Dig is one of the most detailed pieces of Middle Eastern history in recent years that has been put out. It's freely available from The Dig on Spotify. But on this topic, right, of like Israeli propaganda and how general Israelis feel, I know that this is part of the discussion that they go into later. Look at the definition of genocide on the UN Convention of Genocide, right? I just look at this. So this is Article 2. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, causing serious bodily or mental harm, killing members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. How are any of these things connected? It's called Thawra. Thawra. It means revolution in Arabic. It's the much stronger word. And just on this topic, right, how is this connected to this? You know, when all of the people go, well, actually, genocide is when you kill everyone, and if Israel wanted to do that, they could do it. Like, yeah, Israel could kill more people, but first of all, there would be more blowback than there already is, and it would probably reach a point of like, hey, you are exterminating 2 million people and we might have to cut aid. I mean, well, but you know, at this point, I really don't think that there is. But anyway, just these things are not fucking connected. So when you see them, like, surely genocide has to mean something more than just killing people. What percentage of people? This is such a terrible definition of what genocide actually is, because it's so broad, it's so expansive, and I believe that these things are genocide. Like, each individual one of them is genocide. But I think that the ultimate thing is that people don't understand it as that, and even this is like a, even this is like a rigid definition that is not good enough. And so on this topic of like just saying, well, it's just Israel, it's just the current government that's genocidal. No, I think that it is Israel as a project which is genocidal, a project of replacement of the indigenous people who lived in that land via administrative, via many other different means, is always genocidal. Israel has a ton of fucking benign laws that just kill people. Look up, right, I'll pull it up. I am terrible. One of the funny things, which I'll expose myself here, is quite often when I make a video, I have to like put images over, because I am terrible for spitting when I'm speaking, when I'm like doing this, because I speak a lot and such. Adela. I mean, this is just one example. This is Bet Selem. Forbidden families. Israel basically, since the early 2000s, has forbidden Palestinian families from reuniting together. So what they'll do is, if someone gets married from, say, the West Bank to someone in Israel proper, they won't be allowed to reunite in Palestine. They won't be allowed to reunite in, say, they won't be allowed to reunite in the West Bank. They won't be allowed to reunite in 48 Palestine. They will not be allowed to, reunite, and they are forced out of the country if they just wish to have a relationship. It's like ridiculous, and it's this thing of how elimination of indigenous people can be so fucking benign and not like extreme violence, you know? And that's why I'd never sit here and just say, well, it's just, Netanyahu's a disgrace. Netanyahu is, of course, a disgrace, but so have been every Israeli prime minister. There is no one who is not a disgrace. Even Yitzhak Rabin, who they hold up as this liberal hero, didn't want Palestinians to have a state. He didn't want Palestinians he wanted to break the bones of Palestinian children. It's for me, it is this thing of like, oh, it's just blaming one. It is a crime to suppress a non-violent resistance movement against, resistance movement against occupation, against the oppression of Palestinians. And yet that's what Israel does. I don't want to hear about just Netanyahu. It's a get out of jail free card. And I'm sure that there are people who want to know. There is a TikTok about my opinion of the Louis Theroux thing. I liked the Louis Theroux thing. I thought the Louis Theroux thing was pretty good. But I think that the thing is that it offers people a get out of jail free card of, look at Daniela Weiss, look at Itamar Ben-Gvir, look at all of these people, point to them and say, hey, they're the extremists. But like, it is very extreme to go to another people's land and believe that they do not have a right to live there based on a biblical claim, and to say, well, the indigenous people, they're just backwards, they're kind of savages who've wasted the land of Palestine.
Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building, the chances that you're killing children is pretty much 100%. Okay? It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting. I've seen videos, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead, 5-year-old daughter. I mean, I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional. But I mean, so that was my take right after October 7th. And obviously that was coming off the end of me being I'm an Israeli citizen the morning of October 7th.
By the way, that is fucking insane to say. You live in America. You are allowed to move to Israel, and a Palestinian is not allowed to live in their ancestral homeland.
Me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families, being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional shock, right, was this was my reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic.
I know you're all saying I'm muted. Sam is completely right here. Israelis broadly support the genocide. I mentioned this in my previous video. There's a brilliant, beautiful quote by someone who was probably a genocidal maniac, but it's just a quote, and he says, peace now is where... hold on, I'll pull it up. Because probably not all of you have seen my recent videos. Gulf War. I assume I'm allowed to show you... I think if it's for... JSTOR. I assume I'm allowed to show you paywalled articles on here, but I'm going to, and if it's a problem, they can sue me. I will say one thing I increasingly realize is when it comes to university, it is so important to one of the only beneficial things is just all of the access to billions of articles that you get. So this is what Netanyahu Peled said. The little public opposition that exists to these policies of the Israeli state, furthermore, is feckless, indeed largely symbolic, referring to Peace Now. And by the way, Peace Now organised the biggest protest in the entire history of Israel. 400,000 people on the street of Israel with a relatively small population. And it wasn't like now where they were like, oh, we're opposing what... Actually, yeah, it was. You know what? I was about to try and give you a bit of an approval of Peace Now. Now it's bollocks. Peace Now. So basically, in the 1990s, after the Sabra and Shatila massacre, all of these people went to the streets of Israel. Massive, massive protest. But one of the driving factors was they saw Lebanon as like their fucking Vietnam. You know, they saw it as like a Vietnam, the Vietnam of their time, instead of the fact that they were just disgusting war criminals perpetrating horrors in that country. But anyway, they got it fixed. But yeah, this is what he said. So this is Netanyahu Peled. It's one of the worst things that ever happened to us. Nice people in Israel who feel unhappy with the situation but are not prepared to do anything about it. They get together 2 or 3 times a year, and as the saying goes, they give their conscience to the laundry. They get it back cleaned up, and they go back home happy and satisfied. There is nothing more to it than that. They stand at a demonstration, they shout a few slogans, they go home satisfied that they have done the job, but they are not prepared to shake the system. So this is a substitute for real action. And I mean, it's a good point. If there was like if there was mass opposition to what Israel had been throughout its history, Israel wouldn't be the way it was. It's not a massive country, and most of them serve in the IOF, you know?
I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether Israelis would see that this autocracy that Netanyahu was attempting to sort of impose on the country wasn't an extension of what was happening in places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what the truth is I think that the truth of it all really is that like most people just don't care. They just do not care about what's going on there. They just don't care. They get to reap the benefits of Israeli apartheid, so who gives a fuck what's happening to the Palestinians, like, truth be told? They die. And it's just how life is. That's just how life is for them. They're all evil terrorists. And I think that the other thing as well is, I guess I can't remember what his exact comment about Gaza was, but the experience of someone in Gaza is just so obscenely ridiculous. Like when people are like, Gaza was actually lovely. Yeah, there were beautiful parts of Gaza. Of course there were beautiful parts of Gaza. Gaza is the meeting point between Asia and Africa. It is a beautiful historic place. It is somewhere that should, not be dismissed. It is something that is like unbelievable, has so much wonderful history. But unfortunately, what kind of happened with it is Palestinians weren't allowed to leave. Israel destroyed the economy. There was a fantastic, well, it's not fantastic, it's a rather grim thing, is, oh God, there's a UN report that says that Gaza will be unlivable by 2020. It talks about the unemployment and all of these things, and yeah, it's just...
That a year and a half later, after you said those things, that this is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So, you know, I can't say if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind. But I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So, as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started. And I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded and radicalized, I think, people in Israel. It's really...
By the way, this is just categorically untrue. Do you want to see one of the maddest statements that you will ever hear? Concentrate the population of Gaza. Oh no, I can't remember his name. Moshe Feiglin. There we go. Concentrate and exterminate. Israel Parliament Deputy Speaker's Gaza Genocide Plan 2014. The plan... Oh my goodness, Cogito, thank you very much. The plan was to concentrate the population of the Gaza Strip and exterminate them. And you know what? If someone in my government said that, I would be, about a population that we were actually going to do that to. And like, look what happened. I don't know what the reaction would be. It's kind of like this mad thing of like, if I lived... I once actually asked Ilan Pappé, how do you live in a society like this? Because Ilan actually, if you don't know Ilan Pappé lives in... Well, he lives in Israel. I don't think it would be impossible to like... But he lives there quite a lot of the year. Ilan, I asked him about it and he just said, my friends are Palestinian. That's it. He literally just said, my friends are Palestinian. Watch what you show. Oh shit, yeah, good point. I mean, it's an article. I think articles are fine, but yeah, you're definitely right. I apologize for showing that.
You know, I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, I mean, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear. And and obviously, like, that's a much more nuanced conversation, but the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
And I think, I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. You know, I was looking up, we killed in Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at, but I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, by even low estimates, and I brought this up in a YouTube video talking about Ethan, even low estimates, which include every single party within the Syrian civil war, which lasted 13 fucking years. 13 years. Look at how many children died. 30,000. Look at how many women died. 16,000. These people who mention, like, look at Israel's civilian to combatant ratio. No way is that true. Look at this. This includes ISIS. Who killed, as like a small party, killed 500 men. The Russians, who killed 2,000 children. And Israel, on its own, has killed how many children? Well in excess... what is the actual number of children that have been killed in Gaza? I'll take like a low estimate. Why are there no easy pull-ups? I've just searched... Why are there no easy articles telling me how many people have died in... What? I have no idea. I'm searching for this and there's just nothing coming up right now. Maybe this UNICEF thing will pull it up. I don't know. The lowest confirmed number is about 25k. Okay, right, brilliant. I mean, it's just such a disgusting number. And people consistently bring up the Syrian civil war and go like, look, what, no one protested about this. I mean, we weren't in support of Assad. We weren't like in support of this guy. And also, yeah, you're right. And also, I'm actually just more shocked about the number of children, like not being able to easily find the number of children. Also, don't worry about liking the stream, guys. It's completely fine.
Happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members, where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to...
By the way, just on this topic, I was at the university, I was at university last year. I can 100% confirm that there was a fake anti-Semitism incident at my university. We were at university. A pro-Israel group had a stall in the university that had an Israeli flag. They were handing out leaflets which didn't mention any Palestinians were killed in the Second Intifada. It said 1,000 Israelis were killed by Palestinians. It was handing out pinkwashing. It was handing out just disgusting leaflets. And they had a very angry reaction from a huge amount of people. No, I know about people liking the stream, by the way, but yeah. And so on this fake anti-Semitism incident, it appeared like everywhere. It was on GB News, which is like a right-wing British news institution. It was in like other newspapers. Loads of my friends were racially abused and they were saying like, go back home. And all of them were like, two of them were one of them's from Pakistan and Lebanon. And one of them is from... where are they from? They're from Iran. Like their dad's from Iran or something like that. And they were getting racially abused. Like they had way worse experience than these Jewish students who were saying, we don't feel safe on campus. And those same students were walking around the university laughing at my friends. And like, this whole idea of like, oh, these campuses aren't safe for Jewish students. I'm sorry, it's not true. It is like this thing of how Ethan talks about himself. Like, I am sure that there are people who say anti-Semitic stuff, like genuinely anti-Semitic stuff. I see it on my platform, people saying things that are just awful. But like, at the same time, the experience of Jewish students on campus is very much generally very different to like the experience of, say, I don't know, like people who are actually experiencing discrimination when it comes to Palestine, which are predominantly Muslim students who are like a person who I knew at university who was targeted by articles that called her out, and she was from Gaza. Her brother was killed by the Israelis. Like 100% her brother was killed. And they asked the vice chancellor of our university, she said, can you apologize for what Israel did to our brother, to my brother who was killed by them? And the university couldn't even say sorry. And the university refused to cut ties with Israeli universities. They refused to release a statement condemning Israel's genocide. This student had her brother killed by a genocidal entity, and the university had nothing to say towards her. Like, nothing at all. And so I have to say that, like, the experience of Jewish students in comparison to, I know that the stress and trauma that my Palestinian friends went through is incomparable. And in fact, comparing the two is unbelievable, because these are students right now who are left by Western governments, who are subjected to having their families targeted. Even if your family live in the West Bank, right? Like, they are constantly at risk. They are constantly at risk of detention, violence, torture, all of these things. And yet I am meant to believe that, like, random people who live very privileged lives in the UK, who the only people who are at risk in their families are literal IOF soldiers who are in Gaza right now. I'm sorry, I don't even know what to say there. And I think Sam is right to bring this up, because it's the same thing. And you're right. I mean, exactly. I think that there is a place to talk about, hey, anti-Semitism is rising. But shouldn't, like, I tweeted about this. Would it not be right to bring on, would it not be right to talk more about Asmongold engaging in verging on Holocaust denial than talking about Hasan and a sword that doesn't even have a swastika on it. Like, Ethan was, like, gleeful about it. Like, Ethan was gleeful about it. Also, I can't see what this SW person is posting. Yeah.
Perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country. I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
well, two people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Oh, absolutely.
People,
absolutely.
People who are uninvolved in the war, if they're being like victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
you can care about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously, one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse. And what's
I mean, also, did any of you see this tweet? That apparently the Trump administration was removing words and like banning words like disabled, and the only thing on like bigotry that they didn't remove or think was important to, basically deal with was anything related to anti-Semitism or Zionism. They felt okay with just having all of that remain in. And I think that there is this element of the way in which anti-Semitism has been deployed by Western governments to increase authoritarianism. And when you sit there and kind of go, what Sam Seder is saying, he's not making some point of like hand waving it away. He's just talking about how the two are like, not how the two of these things are not like basically worth talking about in the same vein, because anti-Semitism matters, but ultimately the way Israel is behaving increases that more. Like, look at how much appeal people have gained. And there are people who trade in anti-Semitic stuff. Like, look at Jake Shields and Andrew Tate, who Andrew Tate's just a genuinely dangerous bigot who used Palestine as a means to like gain a bit of legitimacy. But that's not what people want to talk about. They literally just want to use it to shut down Hasan, especially in the case of Ethan.
What's happening in Gaza?
Who should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course, who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but. I would put it in the context of like, you're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them. And it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
I gotta stop you because I don't think I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I just said like you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
Look at the people who've become like friends and allies of Ethan, like that Harley epic mealtimes, like a justifier of the killing Palestinians, like people who are really extreme, who are really racist. And I think that ultimately anyone who is opposed genuinely to anti-Semitism should consider the fact of what anti-Semitism, like all forms of bigotry, really is defining an other who possesses some characteristic which is decided they're responsible for the degradation of Western society, bad and awful things, and all of these things. And what do they say about Palestinians right now? They trade in the same stuff that they talk about the Jewish people about, once upon a time. They blame Jewish people for ruining Western society, and now they blame Palestinians and leftists. And I just think you have to kind of sit here and say, people who are like Ethan, who don't want to engage with the fact of like the pro-Palestine movement is the thing that is fighting against bigotry and the worst form of racism, colonialism that the world is currently seeing in terms of mass extermination. Well, actually, there's places like Sudan and many others where atrocities are going on. But like these are all emblematic of a similar thing,
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place. And then the Israelis, right? So like when you're talking about,
in terms of the way that you characterize the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of like we are committing, like you say, genocidal acts, and if people want to call it genocide, I don't, obviously it's got to be. It's a legal term, but I think that it's, colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue, I think is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people... I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you. Like, obviously, the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims. After everything that's happened, obviously, whatever they've suffered pales in comparison to the mass destruction and like wanton death of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. Lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because
I mean, also, by the way, like, again, I will always reiterate my take that has always been this. October the 7th exists within the framework of settling people's land. Like, there is nothing else to it. It didn't burst out of nowhere. It exists entirely in the context of, hey, Israel ethnically cleansed and expelled people. And especially considering, in recent years, in recent years especially, Israel has increasingly moved into Palestinian land. It has increasingly threatened to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It has increasingly ethnically cleansed and removed more and more Palestinians. And so when people say like, oh, Israelis were the victims of this awful thing, like, yeah, violence happened, targeting of civilians, you have to condemn it. But at the same time, where did that come from? People act, and this is the same thing with like, Luigi Mangione, right? Killing someone in the street is not an indication of like great times in your society. It's not an act that most people should undertake. But is the act of one person who commits a great act of violence on the street, is that comparable to a healthcare company that inflicted a far grander violence? And this is actually something I'll get onto later when they talk about the Gaza border. The concept of Gaza, a space where Palestinians shouldn't even be, because the vast majority of them live in other places. Like, I hate the word Gazan. It should be Gaza. A Palestinian from Gaza, Ghazawi is what they call themselves, or like a Palestinian from Haifa. And there are distinctions. And my friend spoke about this. She would tell me like, oh, you'd wear like a certain colour dress if you went to the UNRWA school or if you went to a Gaza school or like a thing like that. Ultimately, her entire life was defined by this Israeli occupation. Do I blame her for being angry? Do I blame her for having very strong feelings against Israel? No. Do I blame any Palestinian from Gaza? No, because the form of violence that they are experiencing, it eclipses it, because it is a form of violence that is grand on so many different scales by so many different metrics and such, And on the topic of Bad Empanada, I like Bad Empanada's videos, and at times he makes good things. I just think sometimes Bad Empanada goes quite far and does some things that are like, I think probably, hey man, maybe no need to say that, but yeah. And also, yeah. And on the topic of West Bank civilians, there's a point later where Ethan goes, oh, kibbutzes. By the way, Eyal Weizman, himself an Israeli architect who runs forensic architecture, who runs forensic architecture, who works at, who works at Goldsmiths or something. He wrote a thing about how basically, Israelis who live within settlements should be classified as different degrees of militarization, because ultimately, even if they are not serving as settlers doing violence, they watch Palestinians. They act as like outlookers who are the front line of the Israeli military regime of settlement. And so when you sit there and act as if like, oh, these kibbutzes are just, these like places. And also, thank you very much, Riverwand and Hyper J Gaming. And someone said, now do the same for Israelis. Well, like, I would do the same for Israelis. I will be honest. I would do exactly the same for Israelis had they not come to the land of historic Palestine. You know what? This is it. If Israelis did not come as settlers to the land of historic Palestine, who believed that they had a right to take away the land from the Palestinians, then I would be sat here and saying, hey, it's Israelis who are suffering under Palestinian settlers who wish to take their land away. But I think that, this is kind of my key point I want to say here. Like, with Israelis, they came as settlers. They reap the benefits of apartheid. Their nationalism, their entire defense industry, their entire military is not based on Israeli security. It is about upholding a regime of apartheid.
I agree with you.
And thank you very much, Peter, and free Palestine indeed.
Is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally, and like even the information that they're consuming, I think that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said,
I think he's talking about Israelis here, but what my key point would be, Israelis don't have that realization because every single settler colonial project sees the indigenous person as part of the flora and fauna, like as in the plants, the landscape, which needs to be conquered, which needs to be destroyed. They're not humans to them. Colonialism turns human beings into denigrated others who are subhumans, What about biblical Judea? What do you mean, what about biblical Judea? Oh, great, 3,000 years ago. When when the Italians went to Libya, they said, you know what, we deserve this back because these Libyans, these people who lived here, they've wasted it. They have wasted it away. Let's do away with them. Let's do away with them because us good Romans have a right to own it.
A lot of Israelis don't know what's happening.
And also, Israelis do know what's happening. Israelis love what's happening. Like there's that interview of, who's that guy? Is his name like Corey Gil-Shuster, who goes round and there's like that old lady and she goes, I prefer not to speak about what's happening to the Palestinians. I don't think Hasan has invited me on stream or anything. So, if Hasan ever wants to bring me on stream, I would do it. And someone asked, will I react to the Ethan debate? Yeah, I'll be doing it Friday.
I mean,
there's some, of course,
Haaretz, what was it in the fall? You had the publisher of Haaretz, speaking out about what was going on there, and the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down on to some extent. I mean, so
what's your explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think, look,
I often use the word evil, but I don't think it's really a good word to use because it makes people seem as if there's not like a society, a political reason for this. The truth is Israeli society has long dehumanized Palestinians. I mentioned it in my essay. There was, in my recent video, one of the videos, I can't remember which, and there's a thing of Israelis comparing Palestinians to Amalek decades ago. Israelis have just long seen Palestinians as people who don't exist, who exist exclusively as a foil to the establishment of Israel. And by the way, when they, this is also a topic, when people call Palestinians of any variety Nazis, they are dehumanizing them. They are making them seem as if their ideology is akin to the people who we all know perpetrated some of the worst atrocities against human beings on Earth in history, and once you compare Palestinian ideology to that, they're fair game. They're fair game. Like they're fair game. And Israelis think this. Israeli prime ministers on the eve of the invasion of Lebanon, Menachem Begin said to the cabinet that he didn't want another Treblinka. He said that Yasser Arafat was a two-legged beast, a term which he had previously only used for Hitler. And he said that about Yasser Arafat. It's so insane. I do need a mod. You know what, HyperJ? You can mod. I'll add you as a moderator. Can review chat messages and hyper. Thank you. Thank you, Ethan Klein, indeed. Ethan Klein is the rent payer. The 2,300 of you in here are paying the rent. And also, yeah, I am not... on your message, River One, saying I'll get sent to El Salvador, I think the only thing saving me from El Salvador is luckily I am not a poor Latino man from somewhere. I am a British aristocrat, thankfully, so I'm allowed to, I'm allowed to do as I please. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that's the truth. I'll never be able to come to America, or not for Trump's term. I cannot come. It's like I can't go to Israel.
I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. I think some of it is, frankly, is a racism, and I think how can you explain? How can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting "USA, USA," to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their heads shaved. I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. And I think, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is, maybe some type of mass failure to deal with trauma. I mean, I don't know all those things. I think, part of it, I think there's some of the makeup of.
There's a really interesting topic here. So thank you, by the way, for everyone who's donated and supported. It's incredibly kind. What was I going to say? So this is actually something detailed in this book. I couldn't tell you the page numbers, but in this book, he details how basically there was this period after Mayor Kahane went to Israel and started talking more and more about Israel, basically. He would basically, about the Holocaust, and he would say, look what happened during the Holocaust. It will, here it is. In the wake of Kahane, we heard more and more about soldiers who, exposed to the history of the Holocaust, were planning all sorts of ways to exterminate the Arabs, recalled Education Corps officer Ehud Prava. It concerned us very much because we saw that the Holocaust was legitimizing the appearance of Jewish racism. We learned that it was we learned that it was necessary to deal not only with the Holocaust, but also with the rise of fascism, and to explain what racism is and what dangers it holds for democracy. That's from Tom Segev's The Seventh Million, and that's an Israeli Education Corps officer in 1987. He was in the Israeli army, and he was talking, hey, there's something pretty heinous going on with Israeli soldiers. And there was also thank you, Amin. And there was also sorry.
Immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it, and I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond the sort of vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I
from
agree.
my perspective, it's gobsmacking, and to me, it has shown, and I never identified myself as a Zionist as a kid or, through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think it wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I don't really care one way or another how I'm labeled. But to me, it shows a failure of that system of government that Israel has, and it has failed both from a perspective of what I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the 19th century. It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. It seems to have been a massive failure. And so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or Zionists are doing. And so, I mean, that's where I'm coming from with this. That I don't know if there is a psychological state that can justify this. In fact, I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, it is the way that it is. And so that's for a reason. And it's
I can understand, and you know what? Sam said he wouldn't psychoanalyze, but I can psychoanalyze if people would like. I can psychoanalyze because it's something that I've always been very interested in. Racism always operates on creating others. You create others who enjoy at your expense. You make the claim that the realization of a perfect society is basically not happening because of these others. You blame them for enjoying at your expense. Israelis claim Palestinians. They engage in fighting in a different manner. They do all of these things as terrorists. They're terrorists. They're not like, Israel. They're not rational like America. America may kill all of these people, but the ultimate thing is they're like moral and they're not crazy about it. They don't like doing it. Whereas it's painstaking for Israelis. But the truth is that by virtue of calling these people terrorists, you basically establish that they are the ones who are responsible for the lack of peace in Palestine, that they are the ones who need to be gotten rid of, and that's kind of the problem. Todd McGowan it is Todd McGowan. Yeah, it is Todd McGowan. This is what Todd McGowan talks about in The Racist Fantasy. Israelis blame... thank you, River Wonder. Good luck. I mean, we should speak. I keep meaning to. Goodness me. I'm assuming that these are just like Loner Box fans, commenting like heart emojis.
It's just trying to explain it, that's all.
Fucking Israel flags.
I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable, yeah.
And
we're talking about like military aid and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs.
I think oh my god, I think what they should do is they should not just cut all aid. I think that there should be a military intervention or a threat of military intervention against Israel. By the way, I've said this over and over again. I think that one of the only responses is saying, "Hey, Israel, if you carry on doing this, you are about to commit one of the greatest crimes of the 21st century." And they also should. They should also cut all financial aid, everything.
Shit.
Every.
If they need, they don't need American military. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt. And
what I mean is they're not entitled to it. To say more accurately. Yeah. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure until.
As a Jew, and I mean, obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew, I take such offense to what is being done ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. I think it's I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know. And if you agree with that, great. If not, I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why this chasm started between me and, Hasan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality. For example, one of my criticisms of his...
I mean, I am not going to go into detail, but it is very much not Hasan, is it? It's very much not Hasan, is it, who makes these choices? It is just Ethan's behaviour. Like Ethan will never avow it. You can look at my videos if you really want. I think that I gave very succinct explanations. I think Noah Samson did a better job than me, and I think that you know what, for all of his behavior, which I will not avow and support everything that Bad Empanada has done, but his videos are very good, in terms of what he talks about. I hate that people were making fun of Sam Stutter, saying this verbal was and stuttering meant he was wrong. No, I think it's also just a very slow and calculated way of speaking. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that this is a very slow and reasonable way to be. I think very often one of the reasons that I actually struggle with debates, in spite of often knowing more than people, is because I think too fast and I think too much all at once, and this means of being very slow on your points is very clever. And so and I think probably, and I think that also Overzealot's as well, that was the other person that I wanted to mention. Overzealot's video is brilliant. It's really brilliant, and it's much more visually appealing than mine, and I think it does fantastically. I think it's a really good video to watch. If I was to pick one to watch, I think the truth is with my own videos, very often I just put them on and I kind of watch them because I kind of I have it on in the background other videos, but I think it's brilliant. Sorry for the freeze frames as well.
Is him not supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been.
Yeah, and I saw Hasan talking about defending it. And also, by the way, on this shit topic of Kamala, look, Trump stands for a greater, more horrifying movement of racism. That's something I am very, very, very willing to admit. I think this El Salvador shit and the whole fascistic element of how they kind of show it and display it is really, really disgusting. But at the same time, what I will say is categorically, when it comes to ending the genocide, I think Kamala would have done nothing different. Kamala, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. I think that she would have done absolutely nothing different. There was that recent report by Dropsite News, Biden Godsend, was it? Here's Dropsite's thread on it, and I mean, isn't this just... Oh, shit, sorry, fuck, probably shouldn't show you that. Shit. Oh, well, who cares? It's nothing problematic. God did the state of Israel a favour. Look at this, former Israeli ambassador Michael Herzog talking about this, it's just is voting for Trump any better? No, of course not. Voting for Trump is worse, but, at the same time, do I blame anyone for not fucking voting for Kamala? Fuck no. Oh, shit, actually, shit. Yeah, whoops. Okay, that's probably not a problem.
Better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. I mean, that's and he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check to do whatever you want. Now,
it just came out that Biden didn't, did nothing to. I mean, listen, I think.
Well, I'm talking about Kamala.
I suspect that. I suspect that she would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. It would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope her difference would have been, I think it would have probably had implications in the election. But I think perhaps even more importantly, it would have maybe implicated the behavior of Israel. So, I mean, look, I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils. But
yeah, me too. And I think that that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah,
I can certainly understand how.
Thank you, Mighty Quinn. I don't know if I'd agree with this lesser of two evils thing. As I say, Trump stands for something more evil, but I think it's so difficult. I think it's so difficult to vote. I think truth be told. Oh, great, I didn't show my DMs. Oh, that's fucking fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. There's nothing really problematic in there or anything, but I was just panicking a bit because I was because there's There's one sort of DM that may have been problematic, and it's not got anything problematic in, but it would cause some unwarranted and unneeded drama. So I'm just glad it didn't show.
Some people.
And when I say unwarranted drama, I don't mean anything to do with me. And I know I probably shouldn't even talk about this, but I've kind of brought it up now. So it's someone who'd messaged me, and I just don't want a problem to come up for them. And it's not my business to share something that came to me. And so yeah. That's it's good.
People were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think I
understand why they didn't. I totally understand the perspective. Like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time, like, a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan, who has a huge influence on people, I think, and who's someone who who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the other thing is that, like, let people vote how they fucking want. Let people make decisions. It's not. It's not the most obscene thing in the world. Like, it's not the most thing. Yeah, that's who was messaging me. Hamas were messaging me and saying, "Hey Chris, can you go on to a stream about Ethan Klein and Sam Seder debate?" But like, also on this topic of just like, let people vote however they want, and like yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Voted for Jill Stein personally. But either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her. Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer, and basically you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, I certainly have been critical of people who, generally don't vote for the lesser of two evils. But I think, and certainly, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly that was my perspective. But again, what the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability to signal that there would be any change. I think sometimes you have to take this at face value. And I think there would be certainly, definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government like Trump is. But, I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old. That I couldn't really condemn someone from taking that position based upon what we were seeing. I mean, it's not just some random person.
I do, and I'll tell you why. Kamala Harris wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said, finish them. I mean, let's be honest. Like, for someone like...
Yeah, she also said that she wanted the most... She also said that she wanted the most lethal military. I mean, I saw someone put it in here. It's kind of like this thing of like, I mean, I think on foreign policy elements, there is no discussion of this. And I don't love the lesser of two evil things. As I say, I think Trump stands for something that is worse in the way that he stands for like a more fascistic movement that is openly moving towards fascism. But at the same time, I just think, and I think the same about the UK, I think we just kick the can down the road because neither of our parties are ever willing to... Well, the left-wing parties are never willing to do anything progressive. They're never willing to offer anything different in terms of foreign policy. And then over and over again, we just move toward, fascism. I have streamed a lot. I used to stream a lot on TikTok, but I kind of stopped because you just get banned all the time. And so I've kind of decided to stream more here, I guess.
Said, I want to ceasefire.
I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not talking about Biden.
No, I understand, but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. So,
well, you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
I mean,
well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No. But I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president, said he wanted a ceasefire. She, as a candidate, said, I want a ceasefire.
Well, do you not, even if you're like...
And on the topic of like I've always said, I don't live in America. I don't have to make that choice of who I'm going to vote for. I don't really care. I like it's well, no, I don't not care. I mean, Trump, like whoever's American president. I don't necessarily believe in the accelerationism thing. I just believe it's letting the mask slip in many senses of like the American governments have over and over again just oppressed and killed people and just done atrocious things all around the world, and it has never changed. It's never changed. And so I kind of sit here and I find it very difficult to say, well, I just pick someone on the basis of the lesser of two evils, you know? I'm not American. I don't have to vote. I don't make that decision. The only decent argument I have ever heard, which made me kind of think more about voting Labour in the UK, and I didn't in the previous election because it was different. It was different for us. There was no competition. Labour was going to win the election. What was I going to say? The only decent argument I've ever heard is that on a local council level, it matters in the sense of like funding certain things. But I mean, as I say, I'm not American. I don't vote there. I don't vote there. Simple as. Trump is bringing what the US has always done back home. I mean, in many senses, yeah. And I mean, the truth is increasingly around the world, there has been growing authoritarianism. I think also in the sense of like how we deal with in the UK, for example, I live in a country that is closely allied with the United Arab Emirates, with Israel, and this is meant to be the Progressive Party. They are slashing the welfare state, they are increasingly targeting trans people, and I have to sit here and hear that is the lesser of two evils. I am sorry, is that the lesser of two evils? What is this? Like, how can we accept this as our life? How can we accept this as just our life, you know?
I don't know how much I trust them. One's like, I want a ceasefire, and the other one is like, finish them.
Well, listen, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse, but I think like if you're trying to get the candidate to show some indication of this, I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it, but
yeah, and I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like that, it feels like It feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice, and I think you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice.
I'm just going to speed this up because I don't want to listen to any more about this. And I mean, to the person who said, like, I don't blame people for not voting, I think that's exactly the point. It's a choice that people make, and I don't think it's the people who didn't vote for her that fucked the election. I think the truth is Trump ran on a much simpler campaign of like, hey, I'm going to deport everyone and make life good for you. And the only real, like, decent leftist response to that is probably going to be, hey, my option is, or the way I'm going to deal with that is basically by going, well, I'm going to lower rent, I'm going to increase wages, and I'm going to make life more bearable for people. And that wasn't what Kamala actually ran on, really, is it? Like, truth be told, she ran on making the military more lethal.
To signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump, but they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se. But
well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hasan and how this tends. Well, let me show you this.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly, like,
let me show you this.
I honestly.
Yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something, and again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip, but I'll show it to you, and you tell me what you think.
This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting, if they've ever exhibited
based from Hasan
any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone that's had positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi.
I think also the key point here would be, hey, anyone who feels this way about Israel, you know, I think especially right now, it's really, really just god-awful, and it is unacceptable, and I don't think he is saying anyone who has ever felt that way. I think he is much more meaning people who, you know, maybe one day change their opinion, because, like, he wouldn't discredit people who change their opinions, but, like, I mean, I don't think it is that horrendous of a take. I think, you know, Hasan probably says and does things that I disagree with far more than that. It's just, yeah, it's like, who cares? Who cares? Like, it's like, why do you care so much? Like, exhibiting positive feelings towards a state doing genocide. Hey, that's pretty fucking weird, and maybe you shouldn't be allowed to catch dogs.
That's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language.
Well, I think that maybe they could walk like XL bullies, you know, a dog that were, you know, known for violence, but you could never, ever, ever let them near puppies, because, you know what the IOF are like with children, so, yeah.
About what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people you know in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I mean, he says Zionism, and I'll tell you what I think is really...
Sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says, if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you look at what's happening right now, and you have positive feelings about Israel...
He said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear about what he said.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, like the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond to this?
No,
I don't. Like I say, I don't care about this. But if you're going to force me to respond to it, what Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me to understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now, you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that is too broad a step. But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But see. You go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about a poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation, I think, is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I will tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, call my father and ask him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just one, that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews. It is a fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men, for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time. I mean, look, you do a show Sam, 4 hours a day. He does a show 5 or, as far as I could tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam. Well, you don't know. This is a totality of behavior.
But you wanted
and by the way, it's easy.
And
I appreciate that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying this.
You're saying
conflation.
It doesn't.
Sorry, I have to pause it here. He is 100% cooking. This is true. A hopscotch way to get there. Like, it's completely true. Like, it's just completely true. Like, it is so ridiculous to sit there and go, he said that he wants to be a dog catcher. That's dangerous, you know. I need to call up Twitch and tell him that he's a Nazi anti-Semite who got skulls sent to my house. I'm sorry, it is just so utterly ridiculous.
You're saying actually I'm wrong for caring about it.
No, yes. In fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous. It is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous
right now,
to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing, violent language for American Jews that have nothing to do with the war.
That is a complete mischaracterization of that.
It's not. He's not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word Jews.
He says a
Listen. How many members of Kufi have positive feelings towards Israel? Wait. How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so it is not.
But it describes most Jews.
No.
Yes, it does, Sam.
It describes most Christian evangelicals, too.
It may do them, too, but it also describes 73% of Jews.
So that is not anti-Semitism. That is about
I don't know.
What
do you call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
Yeah, like, this is just, he is 100%, like, who, like, the truth is, like, how are you sitting there and being like, you're discriminating against the vast majority? Jewish people have a very, very traumatic past. And it is therefore very easy for Israel and Israeli propaganda to manipulate the feelings of Jewish people. And a lot of Westerners are fucking manipulated. I'm sorry, how many Westerners buy into the shit? Oh, Arabs, they're all evil terrorists and, we have to support Israel. And add another layer on top of that. On basically, the Jewish experience of the Holocaust and say to people, hey, what's happening in Israel is somehow similar to what was, historically done to the Jewish people. And you kind of sit there and have this feeling of like, it is just ridiculous what you are saying here. Like, I don't think it is anti-Western or white European to be like, hey, you shouldn't feel this way about Israel when a lot of white Europeans have positive feelings towards it, It is ridiculous.
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
you can say the same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism. It is not. It just isn't.
Like, taking one example in isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you're the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to talk about your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But that is outrageous. That is outrageous. He brought up the example. He brought up the fucking example.
I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
For Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous to what I perceive as hand waving what's happening here. I know you said you aren't doing that.
I'm not hand waving.
You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous
I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, Jewish people have a collective memory of trauma.
Do you notice how he has to mischaracterize, to get to this point of, hey, this is anti-Semitic, he has to mischaracterize what Hasan said, he then has to go on to mischaracterize what Sam Seder said. It is unbelievable! It requires mischaracterization of both things. Miss Preminger have incredibly bigoted views. I mean, I actually met a few Indians who were different at university, but I think generally, yeah, there is an identification with Israel, because people just, it's the same here. Westerners hate Muslims, and so loads of people in the West, like, gleefully love and lap up Israel because it kills Muslims. It's a really sick and sadistic truth of Western society. A lot of people here really like it because the truth is that they kill they kill Muslims.
Sam, and it starts a certain way, and it starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean,
terrorist is fucking dehumanizing language in the context of Palestine, which this man is happy to throw out. It is language which portrays Palestinians as all monstrously evil people because they engage in armed resistance against an occupation, a right which ostensibly they are meant to have under international law. So you want to talk about dehumanizing language? No one cares when you kill terrorists. No one cares about the consequences of killing, civilians in that situation. situation. You could blow up an entire fucking family in Yemen or Palestine and no one cares.
And what are we doing here?
Talking about
it's irresponsible language.
He's not talking about
He's talking
Jews.
about 73% of Jewish people.
No, you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not. Because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad have...
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you describe
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians than Jews.
Would you say that your father, who you mentioned, said something to you, that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel?
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
Not in terms of like I support them, but
I've
I think
positive feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit to walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's literally what he said.
Saying.
I'll play it again.
He's not going to be... Sam Seder is banned from dog walking by Hasan. He's getting banned. Never again will this evil man who had sympathy for Israel be allowed to walk a dog. And it will never happen.
No.
I think, like, this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of... regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone...
Also, there are literally people amongst the most ardent Zionist community who, you know, Ethan has actually worked in service of in recent months. By the way, he's targeted people who talk about, you know, Palestine on the internet, people like Frogan, vocal people. Like Douglas Murray. And I genuinely believe that Douglas Murray is one of the most rabidly racist, Islamophobic, and even borders on anti-Semitic people himself. You know, and like you kind of sit there and you just think like, Ethan, you have been working in service of this movement to deny people the right to talk freely, to speak about Palestine, you know?
And be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting. If they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hasan does this.
Listen,
he plays around with the term Zionist, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews. He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians. More Christians.
Okay, well, listen, I don't think they're neo-Nazis, not fit to walk dogs, either. I think it's insane language.
Listen, you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, and we do that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You know, I just think that,
it's listen. You can say it's an inappropriate thing to say. It's an unfair thing to say.
I just think like Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not.
Why does he bring that up? Arabs that support Israel. Like, why does he bring that up? Because I've seen this bit. Because last night, I watched this. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like the last maybe 20 minutes or something. So we'll watch it again. There's a bit that made me cackle out loud yesterday. I can't remember where it is. But yeah, I mean, why does he bring up Arabs that support Israel? I don't give a fuck about Arabs that support Israel. Arabs that support Israel are like people from the United Arab Emirates. You know? Like, they have, like, who cares? Like, who fucking cares? Like, who cares?
Anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're at an impasse on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, but anyway, another thing he does is he says Zionist tendencies, and he's someone that plays around with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hasan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he said...
By the way, Ethan Klein is categorically a Zionist, 100%.
Saying Zionist tendencies, what does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to him on Friday. You can ask him what a Zionist tendency is. I suppose, I would guess, and, you know, like I've looked at polls.
I would say, for me, that a Zionist tendency would probably be categorized by, I don't know, not having a problem with your wife serving in the IOF, in fact, regularly saying that you are proud of it, and that Hasan was a coward for not serving in the Turkish military, which, by the way, why you are saying that is cowardice when the Turkish military are criminals in many ways. Maybe it's not, I guess they're not all directly participating in occupation, but, you know, what Turkey's done to Kurds, it's not something that I'd be like, awesome, you know? What was I saying? But like also fucking saying, oh, Israel has a right to bomb hospitals, you know, but by saying, oh, well, you know, this is that. Sorry, that's going on. The only time that this mother, you know, also, right, my friend mentioned this to me, you know, what they said was, do you notice how Ethan went on about token Jews, right? He mentioned and said, hey, look at these token Jews, you know, they pull up token Jews. Who are the only Palestinians that this guy has mentioned? This guy, Ethan Klein, mentioned Palestinians who protested against Hamas. He didn't mention, you know, and he mentioned fucking Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib, if that's his name, who's literally someone paid by the US and Israeli government. But yeah. Of course, they're the ones who engage in tokenism when it's just Jewish people who have nothing to gain. Like, what does a random Jewish person gain from going to pro-Palestine protests? Like, okay, Matt Lieb has maybe gained a little bit from being Jewish, but it's also, well, no, he hasn't. It's not from being Jewish. It's that he has a unique perspective and offers like a Jewish perspective on, hey, I'm not this kind of way. But also he's a comedy podcaster who made random podcasts about like The Sopranos and The fucking Wire before. And you kind of just like sit there and say, what does a Jewish person gain? What versus what does Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib gain? You know? And yeah, I think that this point about token anti-Zionists is really disgusting. When all this man had to bring up was, yeah, you know, I like Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib, and he likes fucking Hen Mazig as well. You know, like he brings up fucking Hen Mazig, and says like, I mean, Hen Mazig's not a token. I just hate him. So.
Too, where you know people have various different understandings of what not Zionism is, but I think it is my guess, and I don't know what he was thinking specifically, but the notion of an ethno-state that engages and allows whatever in the name of Zionism allows for this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
Sure, me too.
Okay.
No, you fucking don't. And I know that this goes on. I know that this goes on and gets fucking worse. I know that this goes on and gets worse, but I know that this goes on, but Ethan doesn't agree. And this is the point. There's a really good quote. The truth is, either accept Zionism with all of the massacres that it is currently doing, or reject it because of them. That's the simple choice.
I mean, then I think we the three of us agree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is like to take it even further. I mean, Hasan pretty much like openly supports Hamas.
Let's not talk about Hasan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want?
Ethan is not obsessed with Hasan. Ethan is not obsessed with Hasan. You need to understand this. He is not obsessed with Hasan. Okay.
You want to ask
well,
me?
I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
well, let me.
I'm not here to explain.
What are the chances that you think this debate just asked with a video with a bit of Ethan, like, so how hot do you think Hasan is out of 10? You know, how hot is he? Like, is he hot? Like, do you like it when he's on stream? What about that photo of his armpit hair? Did you like that?
Explore.
Yeah. I have a list of things that.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think, look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I mean, I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists.
Right. Legally in the United Kingdom, the Hamas cannot be described as a liberation movement. Due to legal guidelines, it is illegal to incite support for Hamas and to call them a liberation movement. What I can say is that within the context of Palestine, Hamas are an organization that is symptomatic of Israeli occupation, decades of oppression, and bouts of mass slaughter. Their popularity relates specifically to Israel's consistent extermination of Palestinian people and denying the right for Palestinians to be allowed to be free.
In this country, we called the ANC
What do you think about
terrorists.
them, Sam?
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is an understanding of human nature.
That you're not affording Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
How so?
Well, you're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to.
Because Israelis live in an apartheid state. Israelis live in a situation where Palestinian land is consistently settled, where they have an army which robs Palestinians of the right to protest, the right to, live freely. Like, people act as if the IOF spends its time fighting terror. Bullshit! What the IOF actually does is it protects Israeli settlements and maintains an apartheid regime. It doesn't fight terror one bit. It is a complete and utter farcical lie.
To explain
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring because I asked you if you think they're evil. And you didn't really answer that.
Listen, I don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that we have there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA. Even the PLO,
now, Sam,
that ultimately become a political organization.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous. And
you know what, Ethan cooked here, because this comparison is wrong. This comparison is completely wrong. I think that there is much to be said here, because there were, people always fucking talk about South Africa. And look, I am no expert on South Africa. I've read two things about South Africa: Neoliberal Apartheid by Andy Clarno and Neither Settler Nor Native, which has a section on it. Also, sorry, why, Rioter 69, you keep calling me Milhouse from The Simpsons. I don't care. I've spent time on TikTok Live where a guy comes on and once a month comes live and calls me a virgin. I don't care about you saying that I look like Milhouse. You can say that I look like anything. I don't care. You are watching me. You are wasting your time. Go be happy, be free, block me. Right. This is a movement in South Africa. One settler, one bullet was a rallying cry and slogan organised by the Azanian People's Liberation Army, the armed wing of the PAC, during the struggle of the 1980s apartheid in South Africa. So, right. The fact is that in South Africa, there were very, very, very militant groups who struggled against apartheid. There were groups who, took up weapons against these people, against the apartheid regime. But what's also different about apartheid? Well, in South Africa, settlers didn't practice settler colonialism there. I think that someone could actually maybe make an argument, but this was made by Patrick Wolf. In South Africa, what happened to the black people there was atrocious, don't get me wrong, and I mean it's a greater degree of people than just directly black people. I don't know the correct or appropriate terms for it in terms of I know that the term is coloured, which is offensive in the UK. I don't know what you would say. Anyway, basically, there were a multitude of different groups who lived on the Bantustans, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, these groups were largely seen as a labour force. Never once, well, not on a massive scale at least, did the white South Africans turn all military might onto the Bantustans. Never once did they never did they regularly level entire communities, whereas Israel has been leveling communities in Palestine and doing atrocious things to Palestinians for decades. It is far more militarized. So the situation in which comparing these two things, is it really surprising that there is a difference between the degrees of militarism and the appeal of militarism? I'm sorry, this is something that I wish that he had kind of said, There is a difference, which is South Africa was about economic exploitation, and this was about the elimination of the indigenous people of Palestine. You know. And also, I think that the truth is many people would condemn Hamas for killing innocent people. I think people would condemn for the killing of collaborators with Israel, because it's a practice which sometimes ends up with the killing of innocent people. But I think that ultimately, a lot of people would say, especially South Africans, would say, hey, we share a very similar struggle. Nelson Mandela and Yasser Arafat were very close. Yasser Arafat engaged in armed struggle. Yasser Arafat was very close with streams who did that, people who did that.
I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible. That's something he said.
I think you could say that tactically speaking, listen,
by the way, Sam, in the totality of their campaign, I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did.
Right, I mean, ANC holds members accountable for killing civilians. The first article that came up, I don't know how reliable this. No, it's hosted by the Nelson Mandela Foundation. ANC mostly killed civilians. MK member, blah, blah, blah. While MK had means to attack civilians, it never did that sort of thing. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, despite these noble intentions, the majority of operations killed civilians. A total of 71 people died in such attacks. Of these, 52 were civilians and 19 were security force members. Among these civilians were people who the ANC apparently regarded as legitimate targets. I mean, also, there are different groups. Hamas is not also representative of the entire Palestinian liberation movement, but where Hamas has drawn the most legitimacy from is driving Israel out of Gaza in 2005. Sorry, I just want to eat a piece of chocolate. My shorts were just really pulled up, so sorry for that.
That's a difference, Sam.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that...
A significant difference.
Well, it is a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. So...
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's accountability.
Okay. I mean, being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf. But
you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, it's saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
The ANC did?
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in England and throughout Ireland. I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang when they killed over 100 villagers in 1948. I mean, the history is...
I would not put any of these organizations anywhere near the PLO. I would not mention the Stern Gang, and the fucking Irgun is the only thing.
Full of examples of organizations that commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say, I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying, what do you expect, right? But the truth is that people use South Africa as an example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
Well, is South Africa liberated? Is South Africa free of apartheid? Do black people live equally to the whites in South Africa? No. Why did this happen? Well, because the ANC enshrined private property, or they agreed to enshrine private property that had been accumulated during the era of apartheid. And so, yeah, I think it's I don't know. I think it's like this kind of thing of saying, like, is it perfect then? No, it's not at all. It's not at all. And you hold them up as an example and say, well, you don't need a war to liberate yourself. There's a really interesting quote in Neoliberal Apartheid from a Palestinian activist who went over to South Africa in 2013 and said, if this is liberation, then I don't want it. There are places in South Africa that are so god-awful. Hold on, let me find it. See if I can find a. This is Alexandria in South Africa. Is this what liberation looks like? Is this what liberation looks like? Shanty towns where you throw shit in a river in bags? Like, I'm sorry, people. I'm sick of it. Like, people bring up South Africa without not knowing anything about it, like Ethan does here.
Well, I mean, listen, we had for a year, we had the Great March of Return, where, you know, Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever, that were innocent people who went there, and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so, you know, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally, you know, covering this, my attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, you know, functionally like, you know, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as, like, you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say,
I would. Okay, but I can't imagine that my response would.
I agree with those characterizations, yet I unequivocally condemn unequivocally condemn Hamas and view them as terrorist monsters. Like, condemn them for targeting civilians, you know? As I say, the UK government has enshrined that that is something that must be done. But, you know, I will say here, like, on this topic, if you believe that it is genuinely like the Warsaw Ghetto, did Jewish people not have the right to resist in the Warsaw Ghetto?
Wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, none of it's working out, is it? I mean,
not much at all. Not really much at all.
It's called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society is not protecting Jews.
Well,
it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is. There may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. You know, folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, you know, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, you know, I don't know how I would.
I think the only thing I would say on this topic is it was always a nightmare for the Palestinians. Hold on, let me just find +972 y. I mentioned this in just for a second, like, just read this. Indeed, we shall not let them venture out empty-handed, but pay them handsomely for their ruins and gardens. From the point of view of common justice and formal integrity, we are absolutely righteous and go beyond the letter of the law. However, if we do not wish to deliberately deceive ourselves, we can certainly admit that we have thrown poor people out of their derelict homes, and out of their derelict homes, taken away their livelihood. Whence will the castaway turn with only a few coins to his name? To this day the lament still rings in my ears, the weeping of the Arab women on the weeping of the Arab women on their way on the day their families left the village of Jaouni, which is Rosh Pina, to go and settle in the Hauran, which I believe is just a desert, right, which lies beyond the Jordan River to the east. The men rode the donkeys, and the women followed them, walking and weeping, and the entire valley reverberated with their moans. From time to time they would kiss the rocks. I think you have to say that there is ultimately this thing of, like, hey, there was no good message of Zionism. It required expulsion of people.
React in that type of miseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again, echoed Barak. said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them. And
that's fine.
He's far closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons, right? So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah,
I mean, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was.
I didn't actually know that about Nelson Mandela extending his prison sentence twice. I didn't know that he wouldn't denounce violence. And also, by the way, it matters fucking nothing to denouncing violence in the context of Palestine. Did you know that Yasser Arafat denounced armed struggle in maybe 1988? He said that denounces armed struggle. Let me just find an exact source for it. I mean, I don't want to just pull up the... Look at this. The PLO... Oh, fuck me. Am I going to just have to... Oh, whoops. You probably don't want to see that. It's nothing problematic. Sorry, I just have to archive PH this shit. Yeah, like, look, Arafat says PLO accepted Israel. They denounced armed struggle as well at this point. Like, what was the fucking point? Nothing. There was no fucking point to any of it. Israel still didn't give them a state.
I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware of that the dance.
The Nova rave.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian.
You leave out that they attacked kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did, but I'm saying.
Why does it matter if they attack? Like, you've mentioned killing civilians. What's the bit about attacking kibbutzim? Are they like some special, wonderful place that you can't, that like needed to be mentioned?
Saying that they, I don't know what the strategy was.
Well, okay, so what do you think? Like, would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
This is a really disgusting line of questioning.
I had no doubt on that day that Israel was going to respond.
Go insane. Yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond, frankly. And I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness.
Years.
Oh. Shit. Sorry, I'll just get back to it. Hold on. I'll get back to it easily. Sorry, 1 second. I'll just pull up Firefox. Is that Firefox? Oh, fuck me. You can just look at my tabs. I don't know. Just fucking... I don't know. Oh, God. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, God. It's a long-ass transcript. Right, we're back to it.
And I
But yeah, I mean, also on this topic of like what Israel. I don't think anyone knew that Israel would get away with this for this long. I don't think anyone knew that Israel would get away with any of this. There's nothing to leak on my thing. I have no Counter-Strike rank, by the way. I haven't played Counter-Strike in ages. I'm awful at Dota. I'm just terrible at. I'm not awful at Dota. I'm not very good at the moment, but yeah. Sorry. Right. Let me just go back to this. When you say what Israel expected to do, this is the most heinous crime in recent decades. There is mass starvation going on, mass extermination, intentionally being done, by the way, and they are just doing it. And they are just getting away with it. Like, they are just getting away with it. No one expected this. No one thought it would go on for this long. And yet it has. It is so disgusting.
Was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy what is it, 90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals, that they would use.
Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
As food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in the justification for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
Seeing as Loner Box brought up that I didn't know this, actually the person who took these were the Mujahideen brigades, not actually Hamas. People were tweeting about this at the time.
I believe that they probably, this is all conjecture on my part, that they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing, and I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going I'm not going to endorse Hamas's strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is what I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen. You know?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Hamas knew that there was going to be like a serious, heinous Israeli attack, but they thought that by having this many hostages, they would be able to negotiate in a way. But of course, they also expected the Western nation to stop Israel doing these kind of things. But Israel isn't gonna stop, and Israel cannot be stopped because Western nations bootlick this place.
I can't imagine that they assumed that there would be this level of destruction.
That's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far. I
didn't think they go this far, but
bomb hospitals and shoot EMTs and have rules of engagement like this.
Actually, last night I was really confused by this. I was like, why the fuck did he say shoot EMPs? I was like, why would you pick that as like something to say, like EMPs? But that makes more sense that he said shoot EMTs, emergency medical technicians.
And I think Hamas is certainly up to criticism for their strategy here. If
that's an understatement.
If that's they're
a terrorist organization.
Why haven't they starved out? It's been nearly 3 years since October the 7th. People don't survive that long. Well, it's been nearly 2 years. It hasn't been nearly 3 years, so well done on that. But on the topic of that, why haven't they starved out? Because there is some aid getting in, and people have, been able to do it. There has been growing malnutrition in the area, and people getting more and more diseased, more and more sickly. However, in recent months, Israel has stopped everything going in. There are food reserves, food stores within the place, but truth be told, nothing is going in, and the amount of people... I think I saw there are 6,500 cases of malnutrition in Gaza reported in hospitals. And you know what, as well? I don't think we... I don't think we actually have any idea of like the true scope of what Israel has done in Gaza. They have killed, here's my former intern boss. The number of children receiving treatment rose by 80% in April compared to March due to Israel's ongoing blockade. OCHA reported 92% of children aged 6 months to 2 years, along with their mothers, are not receiving the minimum required nutrition, and that 65% of Gaza lacks clean drinking water. It's just like, you are talking about Hamas here, and what like Israel is doing is, This is according to this is a Turkish Anadolu agency. They're saying here, Gaza government media office accuses Israel of using starvation. 65,000 hospitalized children. Is that surprising? You can even, if you don't want to believe these news articles and you want to go, no, actually, Lonerbox and Destiny told me everything's fine in Gaza, and they went to Kogat and they said it was all good. But here's a video of one of my favourite creators, because as you can probably tell, I like going to the gym, and I often think about this guy. He's getting 900 calories a day. I probably can't play that, it might be copyrighted.
If you are feeling lost in life, or you just feel like you are not doing the right thing, you should be.
This guy literally just talks about his food situation. You can look at it if you want. It's just crap. It's just crap, Like what I think about this. I think about this because I know he does it in a bit, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when it comes up.
probably
that intentionally
presumed-
antagonized like the IDF to come.
They did. You know what? This is just disgusting, and Ethan's done it before. 900 deficit, but not 900 colleagues. But oh, that's true, 900 deficit. I mean, a 900 deficit when you go to the gym is atrocious. And I know you probably can't even do that, but yeah, that's still atrocious. What was I going to say? Only thing they used to say, this is close to 900. Yeah, I mean, it is close. It's what, like 1,100? I mean, just also, yeah, sorry, on this topic of antagonization, it is Israel that, by virtue of its existence, has antagonized Palestinians. By the way, I don't know if many people are familiar with this. I will always bring it up. King Crane Commission. I don't want to use Wikipedia, but I do believe that the other place I'd get it from, and it has a direct excerpt, so I actually don't care. Here you go. This was written in 1919 by two American businessmen. It's a report called the King Crane Commission, which surveyed people in Palestine, and what they said was, blah, 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 where is it? It concluded that the only way to establish a viable Jewish state would be with armed force to enforce it. This was precisely what the Commission wanted to avoid, so they dismissed the idea, saying that Zionists anticipated a practically complete dispossession of the present non-Jewish inhabitants of Palestine by varying forms of purchase. There you go, written in 1919, telling people, do not do this, do not do this.
Slaughter their civilians.
I think that they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this is what was their plan have Israel respond in this way. That's absurd.
Well, and the same is true of, like, I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like, it was totally unprecedented. You know what happened. So maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was. On the other hand,
I have no doubt that they did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology of Israel's fence, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated
overestimate the IDF. Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able to, what kind of destruction they would wreak, and they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetrate on Gaza. I don't know that anyone could have.
By the way, there are also tons and tons of these other reports, which, when people bring up, like, oh, there was violence against Jewish people, there was this violence against Jewish people before Israel even existed. What the hell was that about? This was called the Palin Commission. Basically, what does it say? So it basically talks about how... So it says, the following are considered the opinions submitted by the court. The causes of alienation and exasperation of the feelings of the population of Palestine are disappointment with the non-fulfillment of British promises made to them by British propaganda, ability to reconcile the Allies' declared policy of self-determination with the Balfour Declaration, giving rise to a sense of betrayal and intense anxiety for their future, misapprehension of the true meaning of the Balfour Declaration, and forgetfulness of the guarantees determined therein, due to loose rhetoric of the politicians. Basically, this report was shelved because the Zionists didn't agree with it, and also because a guy called Herbert Samuel, who was like the governor of Palestine, basically did this. Basically did this, and it was just clear from very early on that, like, what was happening in Palestine was not acceptable because Palestinians didn't want it, and yet they're now expected to love it and want it.
Israel would have engaged in this level of destruction and immiseration and bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying the infrastructure. I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, just there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Mm-mm.
It's just such an insane comment. It is such an insane comment. You know, Israel intentionally gasses people in Gaza. What would be the point of building a bomb shelter? Gas the tunnels, Israel's unbridled war on Gaza's underground. Yeah, bro, let's build bomb shelters for the people of Palestine so Palestinians can be gassed. And also, let's allow Israel to use bunker buster bombs, which already destroy buildings in the vicinity and would no doubt have impact on the tunnels.
Okay.
I just think that's interesting. It's pretty fucked up, don't you think?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the point. Like,
well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
I've seen what happened to tunnels under hospitals.
Your statement is, there was. So you say there were tunnels under hospitals?
Israel built the ones under the first one that they went into. They built it when
they built the Shifa hospital tunnels, right?
They were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what can we do? Now, it's obviously insanely difficult
as
Americans,
to say. I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen under Trump.
I'm in favor of that, by the way.
Okay. I mean, good.
I mean, I think
we should call for all aid to be ceased, and I think we should stop protecting them in the UN.
What should have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
I'll give you my response. Exactly the same as Hasan's. Just dismantled. Stop being an apartheid state. Stopped occupying the land of other people. And you know what? I don't even really believe in the concept of a two-state solution, but I think just say, hey, Palestinians need a state right now, and then we'll move from there. I don't think the two-state solution would work, but yeah. No. The mod is not a Zionist. I don't know what you've been posting.
Without saying not this.
What should they have done on October 8th? I mean, I think that there is they're hitting strategic.
I think they should have allowed every single Palestinian to return to the land that was rightfully theirs, established an actual means of holding their genocidal leaders, their genocidal society and military to things. But if you want because Ethan would dismiss that as unrealistic. Okay, every nation says, oh, let's have a two-state solution. Okay, do that. Do the thing that doesn't even work, but you can do it.
Sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should have. But let's not,
the leadership was underground.
Yeah, to look at that, that moment in history, like maybe it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment, they had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
And so, what should they have done?
By the way, the eventuality that Israel has moved towards since its very existence, and on this topic of, you mentioning the Kierkegaard thing and how it was inevitable, it's horrible. It's a horrifying thing to say. But you know what? The only sense in which it is inevitable is not as a response to what Hamas actually did, but in the context of a racist, supremacist ideology that says Palestinians don't have a right to live in their own land. That's kind of why it would be the only reason it was an inevitability, for allowing Israel to exist in the way it has for decades. That's why it was a fucking inevitability. If you have a society which is allowed to occupy the land of other people, which is allowed to regularly commit heinous massacres against all of the people in its neighbours, is it really surprising that, eventually the end point of that is just even bigger extermination? It is not because of Hamas's response. It is because Israeli society is so racist.
Ages ago. Well, I mean,
you're avoiding. Yeah.
Okay, I think what they should have done is begun empowering Palestinians in the West Bank. They should have done.
This is my favorite answer, okay. Sam. You're saying that this is what Hasan told me. They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I have no. 9/11 was worse. 9/11 had more deaths. Ethan Klein should be sent to El Salvador for this. He genuinely should. You should never, ever, 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 ever minimize 9/11 like this. That should be a straight trip to El Salvador. For lack of patriotism.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed, but I don't think
you actually don't believe that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a.
Also, by the way, I just to note that was a bit of a joke. Like, like honestly, like 9/11. Yeah, it's bad. Lots of innocent people died, but like, let's be honest here, Ethan. Israel has killed thousands upon thousands of people over and over again.
A fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their government.
Wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a realistic way, not in a fairy tale, Sam.
Well, listen.
What? Oh yeah, here's the realistic thing. After the Second World War, we said, well, this is a pretty problematic thing to even note, because after the Second World War, what did the French get up to in Algeria? What did the Americans do in Korea and such, and what has gone on for the last few decades? But I think that the key point here is like, look, what should have been done is upholding like genuine principles of not treating people with despicable racism and not allowing despicable ideologies to just be prevalent. October the 7th is compared to 9/11, not in scale, but in chance of the perception of the people. USA would not have attacked Iraq if the people didn't want it at the time and 9/11 motivated it. I think they were looking for an excuse to attack Iraq, and it doesn't even really make sense why they attacked Iraq, seeing as most of the hijackers were from the UAE and fucking Saudi Arabia, predominantly Saudi Arabia, actually, like 3 were from the UAE. But like, I mean, this point of like the comparison between their effects on the population, okay. Like what? And also, why did you spell Iraq like a sort of German Orientalist?
There is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been, it has been quite clear. Their agenda has been, since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks, the agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch-Zionists in Israel, the agenda has been to bring about this moment.
Do you know an allegedly fucking crazy story about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, right? Is that Ben-Gvir apparently said, and let me just pull it up. I'll just get it up. Oh, fuck's sake. This will just take a second, hold on. Here we go, right. Read this. This is insane. It's in a New Yorker. You're a good lad. I'm reaching 40 and I love this new wave. It's been brutally isolating for decades to speak out like this. Solidarity. Thank you very much, man. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I always find it interesting, like the mixture of random people who are just at pro-Palestine protests. But this is so interesting. Listen, read this. Amir said, so this is Yigal Amir, the guy who actually killed him. Amir said that on a bus to Tel Aviv, he had met a Likud activist who told me that Itamar Ben-Gvir wanted to kill Rabin at the demonstration. Amir knew Ben-Gvir from right-wing activist circles, but he told investigators he had laughed off the idea that he might commit a killing. He was just a kid, Amir suggested, not murderer or provocateur. So allegedly, there was some guy who said that he might have killed him.
Oh, there is no doubt about it.
And also, by the way, Western society had long hated Muslims, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union. They could be held up as the intractable barrier that we could not cross. And the hate for them dates back decades before.
Violation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do. Anything.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, anything they would have done would have been.
There was no plan that on this day they were going to do this. But if you go back 10 or 15 years ago and look into Bibi Netanyahu's brain, the idea that this is ultimately going to happen was definitely the agenda.
What, in terms of like attacking Gaza or inciting an attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic. So I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
I mean, Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the war?
By releasing the hostages?
No, listen. Israel has said time and time again that the release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over over and over.
As I said in my tweet, I was really surprised that Ethan didn't know this, because his wife's favourite politician, well, he actually admitted this, you know. His wife's favourite politician admitted, yeah, it was actually Netanyahu who torpedoed the deal. Yoav Gallant, he admitted it. Let me see. Gallant, Netanyahu. I had it on my Twitter yesterday, so if I can't find it, I'll just put it from there. Fucking hell, I'm just trying to find it. Anyway, I had it on my Twitter yesterday, so I'll just get it off there. 1 second. Oh god, I'll hide my fucking thing again. There you go. Yoav Gallant, the raider of Ramallah's favourite politician in the world, said, Gallant says government didn't do everything it could to bring back the hostages. He was a really good guy, yeah, as everyone keeps saying.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite.
And you know what? Again, Ethan, please stop talking about Palestine. This is all very public and easily known knowledge.
I believe that
you really haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when it depends when they were made too, right? Like, is it what's in response to?
Any time.
It's like you guys don't want to accept war is a part of human culture since the beginning. Are you serious? Like, the kind of wars that we fight right now in service of, like, capitalism. Yeah, that's just human nature from the very beginning of our society. No! Starving millions upon millions of people and invading Iraq for BP's bottom line are not, like, innate parts of human fucking culture.
Anytime they could have done that.
What has Hamas done to end the war?
Hamas offered
what have
the
they done to end the war?
Early on to say Hamas offered all the hostages in agreement in response to Israel not coming into Gaza. I mean, there's just to defend Israel's actions.
That didn't happen
either. Being inevitable. Like, when do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes. I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of pointed out but didn't really acknowledge.
When do you think they should have ended?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
The man who has interrupted him over and over again. The man who has interrupted him over and over again. The man who sits there and goes, well, what should they have done? No one can answer this. That's what... It's like those people who go, that's what none of the pro-pallies can answer. The pro-pallies don't know the answer to this one. And it's just like, oh, shut up, you moron. Like, you've sat there and you've been like, Hasan was fantastical. And he goes, they should have done precise strikes and be slow.
So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission. But I think militarily, they probably have some obligation.
Yeah, and if they'd done that, I would have fucking loved it if they'd just thrown... I would have loved it if everyone in Gaza had just thrown rocks at the IOF. That would have been a good thing. They should have gone in slowly and just let people throw rocks at them, because, you know what, fuck them.
Obligation to their city.
And look, no, Ethan definitely does have Tourette's. And also, this interview is probably like a good example of it not being something else, because... If you notice, when Ethan is more stressed, and I've seen Ethan stressed at points, but this is the most stressed I have ever seen this man.
Citizenry, at the very least, to like take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should it have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to, I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before destroying the whole thing. Like obviously they approached it completely wrong, right? But there are ways I think that could.
This is also just so fucking ahistorical. I made a YouTube video about this, if any of you want to watch it. It's called The Palestinian Authority, The Hard Truth About It or something. It's on my channel. It's one of my old ones, so it's a bit shitty. Anyway, the Palestinian Authority are the dogs of Israel. They do whatever Israel asks. They arrest Palestinians who protest against Israel. And by the way, even arrest Palestinians who protest against Palestinian Authority collaboration with Israel. Israel withholds money from them. They don't do anything that is against Israel. And they get nothing in return. Anyone who sits there and goes, well, you know, if the Palestinians were just peaceful, they are fucking lying to you. There is one party that is exclusively responsible for a lack of peace and development in Palestine, and it is Israel. And yeah, exactly, on all this stuff of like special ops and slow and some strikes, all of it's fucking bullshit. It wouldn't do anything. The only way that Israel will achieve what it wants is how it is acting now, which is a campaign of mass starvation and extermination. If you believe that Israel should have the right to go and destroy Hamas and rescue the hostages, aims that it has shown that it cannot achieve, even with the most heinous mass murder, even with the most, weaponizing war, aid as a weapon of war to some extent. If you believe that Israel is going to fulfill those aims, the only way it can do it is by doing this as it is right now.
Could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of peace partner, some kind of alliance, some kind of international coalition.
People were marching. They were marching. They were marching in the Great March of Return, week after week after week.
Sam, was there Hamas activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching.
This is literally like Destiny Loner Box. This is the crap that they're like, oh, well, actually, there was someone violent there. And it's like, are you actually fucking serious right now? This is like, I've got my fact, which is going to disprove everything. My fact will tell you differently. But the key point here is like, who gives a fuck about this one little fact? What I give a fuck about is, hey, why are there loads of people who live in a space where they're not from because they got expelled in order for Israel to exist? Why are they in that space? Because the whole point of the Great March of Return, if you don't know, what the argument was what would happen if I went to my ancestral homeland? What would happen if I walked and went and saw it? Israel intentionally shot people in a specific part of the thigh. It's the biggest, strongest bone in your body. Does anyone know what it is? It's in your leg, and if it gets shot and if it's severed in two, you pretty much lose your leg. It's pretty much fucking useless. They injured, I don't even know. Right, I'll go pull up. 36,100 people, including 8,800 children, were injured by the end of 2000. 200 people whose limbs were amputated. Also, how many of those 36,000 people who got an injury, right, never were able to recover from that? How many of them are debilitated from the rest of their life? Now in a space in which there's no means of like accommodating disabled people, and these fucks, femurs, the bone I meant, and these fucks will sit there and go, oh, well, actually, Hamas was there, and it's just like, you are deranged. You are deranged people. You are justifying these forms of violence that are so greater than anything Hamas has ever done, so you can make some money on the internet. You are sick.
Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the snipers? No, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
There was Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence. They were like trying to cross the border.
They were
but not militants.
There was Hamas activity. There was Hamas activity. fuck you. Like, genuinely, this is all you beg for. You beg for Palestinians who don't use violence. The guy who organised it hated Hamas, by the way. And you know what? His family got assassinated. Oh, you know what is disgusting? This is actually heartbreaking. There's one guy who's in an Al Jazeera documentary. Oh, fuck's sake. Let me try and find it. Right, here we go. I've found it for you. It's this guy. There's videos of this guy with his son. He's like a peaceful activist. His son, his family have been killed. So, you know, yeah, it's all about Hamas, and if we just had peaceful Palestinians, and, what you've got to understand is all of these awful things, they happened at the Great March of Return. The Hamas were there. It wasn't actually peaceful. Such utter shit. This is shit just coming from people who want to see Palestinians kept within a space where they do not get to live freely. It's shit, sadistic crap coming from vile people. Like, truth be told, oh, but Israel needs to defend itself. Who fucking cares? They are sniping people regularly and disabling them. I do not give a fuck. And this is a great article about it, by the way. It comes from Jaspia K. Poir's work, which is called On the Right to Maim, and it talks about people's legs being wounded and stuff, and like how in many ways people see long-term disability as something that's acceptable. And actually, you want to see an even worse example of this? Even I am guilty of this. Who mentions the 100,000 plus people who are injured in Gaza? Like, those injuries are debilitating, those injuries are huge, and yet we're just meant to accept that, yeah, you know what, those are actually okay because they're not dead. And it's just, wow. It's just wow. It's just wow. Like, this is just crap.
Militants were trying to cross the border.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think that there's a way for Israel to try.
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself, but as I was saying, there's 42 knees in one day. It's just like, that's Israeli society. Just bragging about shooting people. 42 people. That's what the Israeli military does. They shoot innocent protesters in the knee. This is what this is. And yet I have to hear from people about, well, actually there were Hamas militants there. And it's just like, Pete, you are deranged. Like, you are deranged. Like, this is the society that you believe in.
I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up. It's insane. It's genocidal. It's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the opposite,
I don't
Sam.
think Israel is.
Well, you asked me what should they have done. I mean, obviously they're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
And if you're asking where Ethan's getting his info, is this a screen in front of him? Because I think the others will be using ChatGPT. And these are also, by the way, points that I've heard Destiny and such bring up. It's crap. It's crap. It's just utter crap. I thinking about it now, it is fucking enraging that you would actually dare to bring that up and act as if you are some kind of moral human being who, you know, everyone else is immoral and wants to kill Israelis. Like, what the fuck are you fucking talking about?
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled hospitals and universities and 80-90% of the homes? I mean, how I
don't know to what extent, but like a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering.
You are justifying it. You have justified it over and over again. But by the way, don't worry. He's the people just don't like him because he shows sympathy for Israelis.
You're putting this on.
Do you ever plan on doing a video on Destiny? I'll answer this here. No. And the reason I wouldn't is because Destiny, I can't say 100%, but seemingly has some very heinous sexual allegations against him. I don't want to get involved in that.
Inevitability. No, I'm just saying inevitability.
I don't think he's messaging Destiny, by the way. I think... why was that message retracted? I don't think Destiny is messaging him, by the way. It's just a Destiny-ass talking point, probably from ChatGPT.
I wonder what you must think of an Israeli body politic where this level of atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF.
Hold on. Let's... you know what? I hate using this. But let's have a look. Yeah, it could just be ripped from ChatGPT. Genuinely, this could just be ripped from ChatGPT. I don't really know. I think it could well be ripped from ChatGPT.
I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
Listen, I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that is because I have a much more theoretically jaded view of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
So what? Well, Sam,
I just
also, by the way, I mentioned this in a video. Israel fucking elected Ariel Sharon to be their prime minister after he was dismissed for complicity in a massacre of 3,000 people in Sabra and Shatila. Shatila? Someone said I pronounced it like tortilla earlier, but anyway, Sabra and Shatila, sorry, it's probably Shatila, isn't it? But yeah, after Ariel Sharon massacred 3,000 people, he gets to be their prime minister, the leader of their country. I think that this Israel is just a society that has long been very, very troubled and very, very much in need of dealing with the nationalism.
Just wonder what it is that you think is in that body politic. Listen, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable. I can't even imagine what I would think would be inevitable. And I think listen, our invasion of Iraq and the complete lack of caring and the only thing that would even mitigate that is there were no images coming out of Iraq, or very few. And certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large. But to perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable,
it's a different situation. That's completely, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. And again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But
why did you bring it up then? What, Saz? Why did you bring it up? Oh, it doesn't matter. Enjoy watching Hasan, the man who won't even respond to me. I hate him. You're leaving my stream, a good, hard-working Englishman, to go and watch a guy who sent Ethan Klein skulls and has a swastika sword. Wow. That's all I'm saying.
Knew that they were going to...
Now, of course, I'll probably only be live for about 15 more minutes. I need to eat. I'm starving.
Bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages
of course
as a
they thought they could. I don't deny that.
Of deterring Israel from entering. And that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder about that last part, but
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. And again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine.
Yeah, Hamas knew that because that is all Israel has done for its entire history. Bomb people. That's it. I know. I'm joking about Hasan. Hasan's a great guy, and I'm greatly grateful for him showing my stuff.
Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages
Of course
as a
they
way
thought they could. I don't deny that. Yeah.
of deterring Israel from entering. And that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder about that last part, but
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I mean, I think that
I said that's what they're doing.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic.
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis, obviously not
I think
all
they love nothing more.
Israelis, but I think that enough of Israelis to maintain this government believe that Palestinians in Gaza, that their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent a threat to Israel. And I think that...
Yeah, there's a video of Ethan basically referring to Palestinians as basically like a demographic threat, and he says like Israel couldn't be what it is if it did this.
That's, I think that's...
Yeah, and I mean, every single piece of evidence points to the exact opposite of what Ethan is saying, but, he doesn't care about that. Yeah.
It's a twisted perspective.
Just so you know, there were massive demonstrations in Israel. Tens of thousands of people in a country that's relatively small. So,
right. Ethan doesn't even fucking live in Israel. He doesn't even speak Hebrew. Right, let's just pull this up. Right, I think that this is one of the best perspectives I've read of it. This is Tom Segev, Israeli historian, who now says Zionism is not worth it. Thank you very much, Con. That's incredibly kind donation. I found myself at a demonstration on Azza Street near the grocery store where I shop, and it occurred to me that 200,000 people, that's what there is. The nation is not divided and not torn. There is no parity between the numbers of supporters and opponents of the regime coup. The nation supports Netanyahu. Who doesn't support him? The 200,000 people who are defending their status as an obsolete elite. There won't be a civil war because the demonstrators will not bring about a war, and the other side in any case constitutes the majority. And as far as that goes, Israeli democracy was never real. For 20 years, all of the Arabs living in Israel were under martial law, and then came the 6-Day War, and thereafter the entire population there in the occupied territories was under that form of regime. As simple as that. Pull up these people who most of which protest against... most of these people protest about, Israel not, Israel getting, most people are protesting about Israel getting the hostages back, and they don't care what's happened in Gaza or what would happen in Gaza.
So I think characterizing like that...
Sorry, JM, why are you posting suicide diaper vest? What are these words?
Majority of the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But I guess you could say whatever you want.
I'm basing this on conversations with Israeli reporters that does not seem to be in Israel a majority at the very least of people who are concerned.
Do you notice as well? I wonder if this is a point. These are all people who are white, like Western-ish. Which protest was bigger, that one or the pro-rape one? I mean, hard to tell, mate. Hard to tell. I mean, also, what would I say here? Like, what would I say? What would I say? What did I have to say? Oh, shit. Sorry, I've forgotten exactly what I was going to say because I was banning that guy who kept saying suicide diaper vest.
About the fate of the Palestinians in Gaza, certainly they want hostages. And again, not all Israelis. But, look, I can make analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But, the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting.
That's 500,000 people against a genocide that they are committing a tiny way away. That's 500,000 people who are against apartheid. And by the way, they're not even actually against those things. You know?
The government of a country that has like 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about to release the hostages.
Okay, to release the hostages.
Yeah. To stop,
well,
to ceasefire. Ceasefire, Sam. That's what that means.
But they don't care about there being a ceasefire. What is the Israeli... Right. Across the political spectrum in Israel, there is major support. Apparently 69% of Israelis support... 70% of the country supports a crime against humanity. This is Israel. 70% of the country. And the rest of them, they probably don't all even... 69% supporting the plan would entail an American takeover of Gaza, while 18% would oppose it, and another 13% said they were undecided. Blah, 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 blah. Showed that 72% of people support the plan. This is like heavy support for just ethnic cleansing.
They were
500,000.
They were calling for a ceasefire, or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has, and I know I'll look this up.
Deal with this.
I don't have much
500,000
time.
Israel.
Wait. Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam.
There's one reason there's been no ceasefire in Palestine. There is literally one reason that there has been no ceasefire in Palestine. Do you want to know the answer? It's because Israel was far more interested in doing genocide, and they don't care about the hostages, and Hamas wants an actual ceasefire. Hamas wants an end to the war. Yeah, I know, I've got 2 fans going, and this PC is actually cooked. It's one of the reasons when I'm uploading something, it takes ages. By the way, I am going to upload this, but I'm going to edit it first.
Israel
10%.
just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea that Gazans can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis.
No, guys, that is actually wrong. That is completely wrong. The majority of Israelis don't want Palestinians to die. They want the Israeli military to kill or expel them. So I think Sam needs to apologize for that one.
Do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza. That is my opinion.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten.
Well, then we agree.
They've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th. And that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they're cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes. Well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam, marched out on the street of a country of 5 million for a ceasefire.
This Pew research, 39% say Israel's military response against Hamas and Gaza has been about right. 34% say not gone far enough.
Sure.
Now, granted, that was.
This is also, by the way, this is actually almost a terrible caveat to bring up. This is almost a terrible caveat to say at this point. This point was one of the worst bouts of slaughter. Israel had killed like 16,000 people within a really short amount of time.
So maybe that's changed. I would hope. But that's all the most recent data.
Yeah, no, I know that the sentiment
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that it just feels hopeless sometimes. But
it certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country. And we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC. And that's,
well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that.
Do you bear a grudge against Egypt for closing the border when there was the only one letting aid rushes in? I bear a grudge for Egypt for being ruled by a military dictator who is a brutal and awful man who massacred 1,000 protesters in a single day in 2013. I absolutely despise him. I think that the Egyptian regime are collaborators with Israel who don't care about Hamas because they both hate the Muslim Brotherhood. And I think that Egypt is not a country that I have any interest in their actions of because I hate their dictator. I think Egyptian people are great generally, but I do not like them, And I think that, by the way, sorry, I was actually going to talk about this. Sorry, I do not like their government. I don't dislike Egyptians at all. I quite like Egyptians, or the ones I've met. Maybe there are some awful ones. Maybe I wouldn't have liked Hosni Mubarak. The man is an American puppet. Yeah. He's 100% an American puppet. I like when people say these things about like, oh, what do you think about Egypt doing this with Israel? It's like my brother in Christ. This is an American puppet regime who was established by the United Arab Emirates, their closest ally in the Middle East. Like, I'm not sure what you expect from it. Pointing to their actions and saying, look what they do. It's acting in service of Israel, ultimately. Yeah, there might be some tensions between the two of them, but it is ultimately a state that has normalized relations with Israel.
That's the most we can do as a country.
Yeah. Don't worry. I like the Egyptian people.
To try to stop the war, and it's something that we should be doing, and I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front,
No, she wouldn't.
We won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner.
Guys, I was supposed to have dinner.
I'll say this.
Not for my child, though. I really need to eat food. I am really hungry. I haven't eaten enough food today. So I think I'll probably just end it pretty abruptly. I will upload this as a VOD, but I'm actually going to edit it first because there's probably some bits that need editing out. And I also want to upload it with not this version of what I've kind of put in. I hope that people really enjoyed the stream. I'll wait to see what you guys think. But I am going to be live tomorrow for whenever the Hasan and the Hasan debate with Ethan is. I'll be live for that. I'll probably go live a little bit before so I can interact with the chat as well. I hope that you have a lovely day. I know I've seen the next 10 minutes of Waffle Kempsals. I am so hungry though. I have to eat. I hope that people enjoyed the stream. I'm gonna go because I'm literally starving. I've been desperate to eat that chocolate, Alright guys, thank you all for coming. I could stream a bit more, but it depends. Alright guys, have a good rest of the day.